I see grid.
There you are.
There.
We did it. I love when this happens. Hold on, let me just lower my little stand because I was just DJing and that's a little higher. And here we are. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna get a little caffeine too.
Yeah.
I had quit for a while, but I'm gonna have a
I
little.
need to quit. I need to quit caffeine.
I'm not just I used to be Monster energy drinks. I would drink during the day. I don't know where that came from because I'm like usually very, very health conscious. And then all of a sudden it was just so many jobs that I'm doing. I was like starting to pound Monsters. And then I started taking that focus formula that I sent you. And after 3 days, I stopped the Monsters completely.
Really?
I've had 2 relapses in about 4 months. So that's not bad. Yeah,
That's
relapses with Monster energy drink, guys. I'll be right back.
caffeine. How's everyone doing? We'll let him get his caffeine. Hi, Christine from Sweden. No, I think this is going to be a really good discussion tonight. Hey, Steffi. I hope Nehemiah is doing well. I saw some of your videos recently. I'm sorry. It's tough, man. Relapse, it's tough. Oh, thank you. You guys, when we're talking, just so you know, I'm not purposely trying to ignore your comments. I will get distracted. And so sometimes, if we're engaging, I will not be able to look at the comments because ADHD.
Yeah. ADHD, me too.
Yeah.
I've been diagnosed since I was 11. So when the comments are going at the same time, it's so tough. But I'll try.
Focus completely. So this will be interesting with both of us.
This will be lovely. Hey, what, and then topics will change all of a sudden, randomly. I'll be like, what do you think of my flowers, by the way?
Oh, yeah. I was diagnosed at 21, and I was so glad when I was diagnosed because it was like an aha moment. Yeah.
They didn't even have a name for it when I'm old. They didn't have a name for it when I was diagnosed. They just called it OLD. Organizational Learning Disability. Because there was a reason. My parents were like, what the hell's going on? We're from a pretty bright family. My IQ tested pretty well. But I couldn't sit still in class. I couldn't sit down. When my mom would shut my door for homework time, I would think of anything else possible to do other than doing my homework. It was bizarre. And then, yeah. All right. Anyway, let's talk. So I absolutely I'm a fan, I guess, if you call it that. But I have watched your content and I've watched it grow. I've watched your attitude mature and grow. Not that you were immature before, but you just started seeing the recovery system for what it is. These people that we are supposed to be trusting with our loved ones are not looking out for their best interests. And even if they are feeding them an outdated, archaic model that does not ring true in the year of 2024 right now. There's nothing wrong with it, and I'm not against AA, so please don't anybody think that. I'm not at all. I'm for anything that helps people. What I'm against is shoving it down our throats in over 9% of our rehabs and telling us this is the only answer, and then feeding us a lot of misinformation. Like we have this incurable disease for the rest of our lives, and they even tell us, look around the room, 95% of the people are not gonna make it. Are you gonna be the one? And I'm like, no, I'm not that guy, I'm not that guy,
I'm going to be honest, as a healthcare professional and I've never struggled with addiction, and I did not realize that treatments were using 12 steps. I had no idea that was when this all started. I had no idea.
Oh, wow.
That was the model. And then I was hearing it from my daughter.
Yeah, you probably, we as a society are basically trained to, go their way. And, this is how it has to be, complete abstinence. Even friends of mine that were in the DJ community here in Vegas, when I came back from rehab, I was coming off like methadone, I was coming off Xanax, I was going through it, for months. And I remember like 2.5 months into it, I smoked like half a joint. And I mean, forget about my AA group. They were beyond, they weren't even talking to me, literally. They stopped talking to me. And when I went out to the parking lot, hi, Jimmy. Hi, Mikey. And everybody would purposely just go like this and turn their backs. I had no inclination to use heroin that afternoon. I just wanted a joint to take away these awful symptoms and help me eat and help me sleep. That's it. I just wanted to use it as medicine. But the shaming that I got that day in 2006 was so severe from these people that I was counting on. They were my support system, but they don't know these things. They only know what they know, and they don't know that shaming people like this, that just smoked a joint, is probably going to lead them to do something else and say, fuck it, and that it's just, I'm so glad that you're starting to see all this and you're starting to talk about this, because I think about this almost like on a daily basis. I went to 30 of these 12-step rehabs. And it was the same exact thing. It didn't matter which rehab we were going to. It was the same exact thing, except for maybe finger painting or horse petting or something like that thrown in.
Yeah, I didn't, even like Brooke initially, she was very abstinence focused. And I think a lot of that stemmed from me, because when I worked in the ER as a nurse, all I would ever see were people abuse like Suboxone. And so I felt like they were trading one addiction for another. And then really getting on this app and communicating with so many people in recovery, that's when I started hearing all these success stories and people getting their life back. And over time, I began to open up, because I do listen. I think people think I'm stubborn. I don't listen. I'm like, if you go back and look at Brandy 2020 to even 2021, 2022, even Brandy a year ago to now, it's night and day. And it is because of the thousands of stories I have heard of people getting their life back.
And I just took a look at one comment real quick. And the gaslighting has already started. The shame is yours. It's a spiritual program. No, it's not. Okay? Spiritual programs aren't mentioning the word God in 80% of the book. I mean, that's not a spiritual program. A spiritual program is enclosing with Christian prayers, and including biblical prayers into the program. That's not spiritual. That's actually pushing a religion, and one religion only. So if you're Hindu, if you're Buddhist, or if you're Jewish, or whatever it is, and you're walking into a meeting and all of a sudden you're holding hands with everybody and saying the Lord's Prayer, that's going to be an instant turnoff. In this new generation, they're not like me. They're not like us. Like I was like, do what you're told. And I was like, I'll do what I told. These kids think. They go on the internet. They love information. And the more that they read, the more that they're calling bullshit on this program.
No, I really think that because of how the change in the younger generations and how more open-minded and accepting they are, and that I think if AANA doesn't revamp their program, I think it'll eventually be obsolete, because I really do.
I'll give it a little bit more than a decade, and I'll tell you why it will die. I owned a rehab for 4 years, and I gave people a choice there. If they wanted to go to meetings, we took them to meetings. Do you know how many people out of, I own, by the way, the first Ibogaine aftercare in America. I don't know if you knew that, but I'm very, very familiar. Okay. I'm very, very familiar with Ibogaine. So I gave people the option, because that's my belief, is to give people many, many options of what works for them or what they're comfortable with. Out of the hundreds of people that came to me, 2 asked to go to AA, and they were both right around 55 years old. This younger generation does not want to hear it. And people say, well, then it's jails, institutions, and death. Yeah, if you keep on telling people that, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, because even churches are having to evolve because they're just not having the younger generation really wanting to flock to churches. It's a lot more progressive now. Progressive churches are doing well, and I've even seen churches in my local area that I went to the Christian private school attached, and seen how now they're accepting of, homosexuality, and as far as those people coming in and not really having an opinion on it, which back when I was in school, they had a very firm opinion on it, that it was wrong and it was not accepted.
I don't, here's the thing, they aren't going to change. It took 4 years to change one word in their preamble and whatever it is. One word. They said they changed it to people. Instead of men and women have come to AA, they just changed it to people have come to AA. It took them 4 years to change one word. Do you think that they're going to change a chapter called To the Wives that's completely sexist and coming from, that's as male chauvinist as you can possibly get, To the Wives, because only men go through this and the wives are here to support us when we're going through it.
And I think, like, there's some people in the comments. Listen, I appreciate the people who want to do abstinence and that works for you. Honestly, I do. And the thing is my issue with AANA is because it's been around so long. A lot of people argue in some of my videos, because it's been around so long. You have these meetings are everywhere, where rural communities, AANA, you can find anywhere. And this is why I think it is so important for them to be more accepting. I think you can still talk about abstinence, but why are we not allowing people who have many years of recovery on MAT to speak? And I know that's not every meeting. And I had made a video talking about, because AA actually specifically says, don't be a doctor. Let the doctor be the doctor. They actually say that. NA, however, it surprised me because they address medicated assisted treatment, and they specifically say it's up to the people who run the meeting. If they don't want to allow people of medicated assisted treatment to speak, they can do that.
That's the craziest. I know. Macaulay Accountable did not believe me on this one. And then I sent it to him and he's like, you've got to be kidding me, And I'm like, no, they've taken a stance on it.
Yeah, they did. And I have the links, you guys. If you go to my main profile and click on like the link area, it'll take you to a list. I have it at the bottom. I have AA's. It's from their website. I posted it, and then I posted NA's stance specifically on medicated assisted treatment. So it is linked there, and it's from their websites.
And again, I'm not against AA or want to shut it down. I'm highly critical of AA because I should be. We now know that trauma is usually the root. We now know that adverse childhood experiences is usually the root of addiction. That word is not even mentioned in the book. It's not even part of any steps. And hold on. And when you do a 4th step and you talk about maybe something traumatic like I did, I talked to my sponsor. I was angry at the guy who essayed me when I was 3 years old. Rightfully so, right? What does he say? What was your part? And I said, Jimbo, or I'm not going to say his name. I was wearing really, really slutty diapers that day, and I was strutting around looking for it and asking for it. Who would even think that that's an appropriate thing to say at that time?
It's not. It's not at all. And I've had stories lately in my comments since I've been more vocal about NA and their stance and whatnot. People in my comments, and I tell people who say, MAT isn't recovery or that AANA doesn't do that. I go read the comments, and you can see all the people who have stopped going because they never, one I know had mentioned that they hid that they were on MAT. And that then they finally came clean to their sponsor, and their sponsor shunned them, literally shunned them, and they were no longer allowed to speak.
Yes, we have had, okay, it's not like this resentment comes out of nowhere and I'm just picking on AA. This comes from years and years and years of watching people die because of this shit. And die because sponsors want to play therapists and they want to play psychiatrists and doctor and everything. And no, They're not doctors. They should never ever be talking about medication with you, period. Even they shouldn't even be talking about things like cannabis or kratom or whatever you are using to stay alive. That's where we're at right now. We're not back in the day, you know, when people would overdose maybe here and there. No, people are overdosing at I think it's 10 times the rate now.
Yeah.
So
No.
yeah, MAT does save lives. Somebody just mentioned that down there. And yes, I run a detox, and I am very, very, very pro MAT because I'm pro science. I'm pro data. You know, I'm pro, you know, hold on one sec.
Somebody had mentioned, are we doctors? I am not a doctor. However, I have a DEA license. I prescribe controlled substances. I am an ICU nurse practitioner. I do ketamine. I manage people with substance use disorder that overdose. I prescribe all of these meds. So I am a provider. I'm not an MD by any means, but I am a provider. So I read the studies just like Justin reads the studies. And it's, you know, when you work in this environment, the more you know, you want to be on top of the latest things.
This guy is an ex-addict. That's it. There's my training right there. I'm a doctor's liaison now, and I own my own rehab for 4 years. And yes, I am EMT trained, first aid trained, you know, but no, I'm not a doctor, and I know my place. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I know my place.
You have
When
experience.
patients start talking, for instance, it just happened today. Patient starts talking about trauma that's coming up now with the ketamine. I'll say a couple of words, and that's about it, and then refer him to a professional. Because I'm not trauma informed like that. I'm not educated on trauma like that. So I have no right to really be speaking on it, you know, or from any kind of authoritative stance, like, okay, here it is. This is what's going on. No, I put it in the hands of professionals. I know my place.
No, and definitely. And that's the thing is, like, I read about things, but I will, I'll tag other people who have lived experience, like Marie, who has done Sublocade and weaned off of Suboxone. With that, I tag her in it because she has lived experience. She knows what it's like. She was on subs for 8 years and she used Sublocade to wean off of it, and she has shared her story. I don't have that experience. And so, I think all of us have a role that we can play. And I think lived experience is very important. But I think one of the things talking about treatment is we have treatment centers. It's only lived experience. They're not incorporating a medical side or knowledge to it, which I think is also very important.
You're nailing it. And here's a comment. How do you knock AA or NA when it helps people? Question mark. Every person thrives differently. I agree with you that every person thrives differently. Okay. And I'm not knocking it. I'm being critical of it. And it helps people, but the success rate is abysmal. We have medications that have 40 to 60% success rate, 80% success rate. And then we have AA with 5%, but yet AA is shunning those medications that are saving people's lives. So that's why I'm critical of it. I'm critical of it because it's not addressing the root issue of why people are using in the first place. And it isn't because you haven't apologized to everybody on the planet. That's not the secret.
Well, and so I don't know if you've seen one of the videos I've talked about. So one of the things like Al-Anon is the 3 C's, right? You can't control it. You didn't cause it. And what was the other one? I can't remember, but you didn't cause it. I've talked about this. I made a video on this and I go, did we really not cause it as a parent? I'm guilty of fucking up my kid. Like in many ways. I made mistakes. I was 17, I got pregnant with her. And my daughter and I really began to heal when I truly accepted that I did play a role. And I think that's important. I think healing can take place when you own your shit. That's always what I say. I'm like, own your role, own your shit, because that's how the relationship heals. If you just put everything on the person struggling with substance use disorder and you're not looking at why they're struggling with substance use disorder, that's a big issue because no parent is perfect, okay? I know there's some parents that are amazing. I'm not one of them. I mean, I've evolved a lot and I'm way better with age, but you know, the thing is that no, I think to put it all on them isn't fair either.
No, definitely not at all. There's many causes. There's not just like one or two. There's a lot of different factors, you know, that come into play here. Also, you know, I saw somebody comment, I'm just a doctor's liaison. That's it. I assist him. I caretake for the patients when they come here. We are doing the first NAD plus ketamine detox. We're the first to do it. I came up with the idea. So I gave birth to this idea. I gave it to Dr. Leung. Dr. Leung has perfected it over the last 4 years. We're the first to do this. And here, you know, when people call, oh, this is bullshit, you can't detox people like that, and they're not sleeping with, you know, on day 2 or 3, watch the videos. You know, I mean, it's some elaborate hoax when you see a year and a half's worth of videos and a board certified anesthesiologist. I mean, it's quite an elaborate hoax if that's what's going on. But what you're seeing is people on day 2, people on day 3 are sleeping 6-8 hours and eating full meals. That doesn't happen in regular rehab. Also, we don't take their phones away, we don't take their laptops away, and we don't take their substances away. Isn't that wild? You know why we don't take their substances away? Because it causes anxiety and stress. And anxiety and stress come out in physical symptoms in the body. So why are we gonna do that? If you're not here to get, you know, completely abstinent, I don't even like calling it sober, abstinent, to become abstinent from whatever your drug of choice is, then what, you know, there's really no point, you know, and it's a cash pay rehab. So, you know, that's a lot of money to shell out to just come here and use, you know? And I'm very aware though, if someone is being pushed into coming here by a loved one or a parent or whatever it is, and I usually say no, because it's not for them. There's too much freedom. You're staying in an Airbnb and no one here, me or the doctor, we're not here to play the drug police and go searching through your stuff, you know, and treat you like a prisoner.
And I think that's where, you know, one of the things, and it just took, because like I said, do not struggle with substance use disorder, is that the number one thing to getting sober and staying sober is a desire to be in recovery. Like that's it. And that makes sense with what you're saying. And that's really the approach I took with my daughter this go around. You know, we skipped treatment. She's been 9 times and we skipped it. And she's not a prisoner. You know, and that's the thing, is I'm like, you can come and go as you please. This is your recovery and I'm going to live my life. Like a year ago, I never would have gone to Phoenix. I had this trip planned that was already paid for through work. But you know, she's sober, a month? And I left and went to Phoenix because I'm like, it's not my recovery. And I know so many family members can relate to that. And I love her and it's great. Like our relationship is the best it's been because I'm not being that helicopter parent.
Love it. And I love that you're going against what Al-Anon is preaching. Yeah. You know, you're going against the whole tough love approach that XA throws on people. When I say XA, also that means any 12-step program. They're all the same to me, which is like kind of wild, because all of these illnesses, whether it's gambling or sex addiction or overeating, they all come from the same place, you know? And the thing is, we knew this like 30 years ago when I went to like my first rehab stay. They had eating disorder people on the same floor as us. And I was like, why would you do that? We're so different. And they said, no, you're actually not. And I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't realize all this stuff now.
The coping, it's you know, it's essentially the same. You have your way of coping, right, and they're in healthy ways, right? As so they say.
There's no need to separate everybody. Oh, you only drink, you go here. You do drugs, you go, oh, you just use cannabis with the, okay, you go there and you can talk about, you know, no, it's all the same thing.
Yeah,
you know?
Okay, so like I drink, but I'm definitely not an alcoholic. And I think that's because of what I went through with my mom and my dad's alcoholism. It was just ingrained in me that I check myself, right? But I'm a workaholic. So that's how I cope, which isn't the healthiest way either.
I know. You know what? I am not completely abstinent. So when I say I have 10 and a half years, I'm talking about 10 and a half years of being off drugs that were causing me harm, that were killing me, that were causing me, to go crazy. I was on 6 or 7 different psych meds, you know? Obviously there's gonna be a lot of, insanity going on there. And now I've been, 10 and a half years off everything that was killing me and all the psych meds that I was on. And this is the best 10 and a half years I've ever had in my life. And it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. Owning a rehab is not easy, not recommended. And, but it's, it's been different. Ever since this is how I left AA. I did Ibogaine down in Mexico, which kind of like changes your attitude about everything, And I usually, when I get sober or whatever you want to call it, I switch addictions, it'll turn to gambling, it'll turn to spending, it'll turn to sex, and when I came back from Ibogaine, I didn't want any of that. And I was like, why don't I want to gamble? Why am I not calling this person back? Why am I, and then my eyes started opening up a little bit. I went to my first meeting after Ibogaine, and it was my home group who advised me not to go to Mexico. Do not go to another AA rehab and keep coming back. But then in the same sentence, they'll say, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, but keep coming back.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense,
Now, when you did Ibogaine, were you sober? Like, were you off of your drug of choice at that point? You went to work like through the mental stuff?
MHEs.
Okay.
I was on MHEs, but I was, I would like figure out I was on Subutex, so I figured out a way to still use here and there. I knew exactly how to time it. And I would use every here and there, and the depression was awful. My place was a mess. My career and everything was going okay, but like there was just something in me, and I'm not against MATs at all, I'm very pro, but there was something in me after 3.5 years, 4 years, I was realizing that I'm gonna have to step up and detox again. And when ideas started coming up, I would rather not be here, if you know what I mean, or unalive myself over going through a Suboxone detox in a traditional rehab again. As I was Googling how to do that, Ibogaine, the Vice episode of Ibogaine came on HBO. And I was like, what is this? And I changed my Google search, and I was like, why have I never heard of this? It's because when I go to just AA and just AA rehabs, that's all they're talking about. No one's ever talking about any other alternative, because what they have is the best. You don't need anything else. If you work the steps correctly, you're gonna be okay. That's crazy talk to me. Like, why wouldn't you want people to find what works for them over going to your program?
The goal should be life, living.
Happy. And also, that's another thing, good point. The goal should be also not time. I got a month, I got 2 months, I got 3 months, because that'll drive you nuts after a while too. But the goal should be happiness.
We stopped, Brooke and I both. We don't keep track of time. I feel it causes too much pressure. We just try to live in the now, and I tell people that. I'm like, today she's sober, today we're happy, today is a good day, and that's what's important.
It's in the rooms, what I noticed, I was in the rooms, by the way, for like over 10 years. What I noticed is it's an ego thing. The guys with double digits, they all sit in the back like this, like, watching, like all cool and everything like that. There's a hierarchy that's created with time. Time should not be the goal. Peace of mind should be the goal. Happiness should be the goal. Living anxiety free should be the goal. Healing your trauma, healing that wounded child should be the goal. Not just counting days, It's wild to me that this is still going on in 2024.
Now I want to ask you, because I have a lot of people who have asked me, and I haven't made a video yet on it, about my stance on Ibogaine. I have been reading about Ibogaine for a while, and I actually had a place in Mexico reach out that offered Brooke and I both scholarships to go and do it. And yeah, I know. and so, which she can't go anyways, because she doesn't have a passport and she has a warrant. But
actually we'll talk off the live
Yeah, no, we
because it
won't.
can
We'll
be
talk
done.
about
It can be
it.
done here.
And so, but is I'm curious because what I've read about it is the most I've read is maybe 6 months of like sobriety. That's kind of and it's been a while since I've looked at studies that I've read on it. I figure because you had more experience obviously with it. And I know you mentioned you don't. I thought you told me you don't recommend it necessarily to get off of drugs.
No, I don't recommend it for a detox at all, unless you're coming off real short-acting opiates, like morphine from the hospital, Percocet. It can be great for that. For everything else, no. For MATs, no. For fentanyl and these new fentanylogs that are coming out, no. For benzodiazepines, alcohol, meth, it'll kill you, And a lot of people don't talk about the many, many deaths that happen down in Mexico. A lot of the clinics love to keep it very, very, very quiet on the hush hush. But does it happen? Yes. I treated hundreds after they did Ibogaine. And about 80% arrived to me in heavy withdrawals. Not just like not feeling good, but like sweating, shaking, unable to sleep, anxiety through the roof. If it wasn't for our combo practitioner that was working at the rehab, these people wouldn't have lasted 24 hours. They would have been out of my place and using. But I would say to them on the ride home from Mexico to my place, I'd just say, hey, they'd be like, I'm in heavy withdrawals. I need to get on methadone, and I'm like, I'm not against that, but how about this? Can you give me 48 hours and just see what I can do in 48 hours? All right, 48 hours. Let's see. I gave everybody the same speech because everybody would complain about the withdrawals still. So what we would do is we would just hammer them with all these different holistic remedies, whether it's different medicines or combo medicine was the most important out of everything. Combo would basically take away their withdrawal symptoms, about 80-90% of them, in about 15 minutes. Why isn't this being used in every single rehab in America? It's legal too.
Oh,
why isn't
yeah.
this being used?
I never heard of it until you sent me the information. You sent it to me.
Why I'm not exaggerating. In 15 minutes, these people would go from heavy withdrawals to almost like looking like, I think there is actually opioids in combo. I know there's peptides, but they would go from heavy withdrawals to
People are asking, is it KOMBO?
KAM.
KAM.
KAMBO. And how do you find a legitimate practitioner? Really, really simple. You go to IAKP. IAKP and Google that. And that way you'll find a legitimate practitioner that has been trained and extensively trained before they're licensed by the International Association of Combo Practitioners. So yeah, and this medicine should be used in every single rehab. I'm not exaggerating when I say 100% of the time, it's away their withdrawals.
Wow.
But we're also like, I mean, my ex is quite a practitioner. She's one of the rare master practitioners in America.
Oh, wow.
So there's practitioners and then there's master practitioners. And I think there's about 14 or so in America. And she happens to be one of them. So she can just like look at you and she'll know exactly where to put the combo dots. And she knows the meridians of the body. She knows the acupuncture points and whatever is going on with you. She could literally detox people alone. Forget about with, using everything that we use and everything that everybody else uses. Combo is that powerful. But, Dr. Long was definitely he was not feeling any of this weird foo-foo shit in the beginning. Then we had, this is about 4 years ago, a Suboxone patient that was heavily, like just throwing up really bad on day 3, I think it was. And it was so bad. And his withdrawals were definitely a little over, I'd say moderate on the COW scale. And I said to the doctor, I go, please, can I just give this a try? Let me just give it a try with this patient. We gave him combo. The guy came into the clinic the next day. He's like, I don't know what happened. I feel like a brand new person. All the withdrawals went away. I was lying in bed. I was peaceful afterwards. Like, we should have given this to me a couple days ago. And I'm like, we're gonna now. And that was 4 years ago. We've been using it, I'd say about 80-90% of our patients.
Some people were asking how much combo costs, like what it runs usually.
It really depends if you're using a master practitioner or a regular combo practitioner. It could be anywhere from like 125 a session all the way up to like 350. Or even like up in San Francisco, I've heard some people that are charging like 5, 6 a session. Is it worth it? Yeah. You know, I mean,
How long does it last? Like when they go through one of those treatments?
15 minutes.
The withdrawal is 15 minutes or like,
The combo. We put the medicine on.
oh,
We burn it in. I know that sounds awful, but the burn is actually the least painful part of it. It feels like someone pinching a little. And then she puts the medicine on, and immediately you feel like you have the worst flu that you've ever had in your entire life. Your body is heating up, your throat is closing, and then you are vomiting up a massive amount. I've never ever thrown up black vomit before. Black vomit was coming out of me one of my first times that I was doing it. I was like, where is this coming from? You know, like what the hell? And then, once Tashara sees the bile, I guess, in it, she knows that you're good.
wow.
And the combo either comes out of you, you purge. Okay. So you purge one way or the other. It's either vomiting, it's bottom purging, which you know it is. It's sweating or it's crying, but it'll come out of you.
It's kind of
And that's
like,
energy from you.
how would you compare it to like ayahuasca? Because you've probably done ayahuasca too, right?
Yeah, facilitated many ceremonies, and I'm probably getting myself in trouble, but that's okay. I don't have any involvement anymore, so whatever. Yeah, that's the combo frog. And what's the difference is one's a psychedelic, one isn't.
Oh, okay.
Combo is not a psychedelic at all. It's really just meant to cleanse the body, detox the body. The reason why Tashara became a master is because she searched the world literally for a cure for Lyme's, and she couldn't find anything to help her until combo. And once she got combo in her, for the first time, she had some life. And then after that, it was like her calling to go and not only just be a combo practitioner, but go to, I think, 3 or 4 different continents to study with different people to become a master.
Oh, wow. That's very cool.
Hold on, I'm trying to read some of these. Feel free to PM me. I'm talking to my doctor about it Monday. Yeah, talk to your doctor. Well, not about combo because no doctors know about that. No doctors really know about NAD plus other than what they learned in their first year in medical school. It's not really talked about in the medical scene. I think it's starting to gain a little bit of traction now. And also, I want to be very clear about this. Do not just search for NAD plus on the internet. What I gave you, Brandy, is medical grade NAD plus that cannot be bought by the public. It's physicians only, or you might be able to, actually. If you contact them and show them
a provider. Okay.
you could probably purchase it. I can sell it as a doctor's liaison, but it's just a supplement, that's it. But it's, we use the tablets before people come here, during their stay, and afterwards. But what we're giving them is the medical grade NAD+, which is called BR NAD+. When you're looking for NAD, do not look for anything other than brain restoration NAD+, or BR NAD+.
That's why I tagged you in that video I made on the supplements, because I noticed when you go on Amazon, you'll find things that say it's NAD plus all over there. So I was telling people to contact you.
Yeah, but you won't find this on Amazon. You won't find this at your local pharmacy or anything like that. It's just, I don't know why, but these people down in Louisiana have the only lab that is, compound pharmacy that is turning out medical grade NAD that is approved by the FDA. It comes from an FDA approved lab in Japan. There's only one FDA approved lab, and I'm not just like FDA guy, but I want to know that my stuff is somewhat clean. The other NAD that you're seeing online is all coming from China. And it's probably been really, 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 really stepped on because there's no oversight of it. So if it isn't third-party tested, you don't want it.
Bashful Girl who asked about saving the live, I have the lives. I will post it to my YouTube channel. When this is done, I can post it on there for those who are wanting to see it, because I do get them all that I can download.
So what's going on with Brooke right now? Is she doing good? Is stable?
Yeah, it's
Dating?
she's really doing good. So, she was always dual diagnosis. She's battled depression since she was young, and she had required mood stabilizers in the past, and she couldn't stand the side effects from them, right? And with mental health medications, and she would always stabilize and do really good, and but she would stop taking them, like a lot of people, and so this go around, she really stressed to me. She wanted to try to not go on any mental health meds. And so I'm just trying to let her kind of guide her treatments. And so I'm just trying to let her
You're
kind of
echoing right
guide
now.
her treatments. And so
Hold
I'm
on.
just trying to let her
You're
kind of
echoing right
guide
now.
her treatments. Let's see. I don't know what happened there, you guys. It started like, it's better.
Yeah, better. There we go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, no, so she's
There's a combo practitioner calling me, and that's me.
okay.
She
But
knows
no,
I'm talking about her.
she's just doing her Subutex and taking her supplements and the NAD plus, and she's doing really good. Like she has a trauma therapist, and that she really likes and gives her assignments and whatnot. And she's working through that. She's not doing meetings. She doesn't want to do meetings. She would like to get involved in an all-female group. And so we're still kind of searching for that. But I talked to her about joining. I know, like your recovery. It's on Wednesdays, you said.
Been great. Like it's every Wednesday at 5 o'clock Pacific time, so 8 o'clock your time. But it's been every Wednesday for like the last 3 months now, and it's been amazing. Just because we're trying to change things up and let people that are on MATs, people that are using cannabis, people that are using kratom, people that are using kava or whatever it is, or people that are just using, they are welcome too. If they need to talk and get things out, why am I going to shun somebody that's using? That was me.
No, definitely. And
And
I think that's great. And that's the thing when I talk about like AANA, some of the people say they're like form your own group. And then I'm like, but you don't understand. Some of the people say they're like form your own group. Someone call you again? Well, it's echoing. Somebody called
No,
you.
every single time someone calls me, and I put it on do not disturb. So why is
And
it
it's
coming
still
through? Yeah.
but
Anyway,
yeah, like AANA, some people like to go in person because they want that sense of community within their community. And I think that's why I'd like to see NAAA kind of change and be more accepting. And I know I've heard a lot of people say, no, meetings are. Your meeting might be. A lot are not.
lot
And
are not.
yeah,
No,
and that's the
that
thing
is
is
not.
that
We
where
were
I
told
am,
always
yep. Where
no,
I
no
am, it's
speaking.
very rural. It's very rural, and it's a lot of old timers, and they are set in their ways. Because I did a speech here in my community, and people were pissed that I spoke out speaking in support of MAT.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know what, that movie that just came out, Dope Sick, which talks about the opioid epidemic, they actually were the first one to paint AA for what it really is. A place that is religious driven and is causing harm to addicts, not helping. A small little fraction, it's helping, okay? And what the study's shown is those people would have been helped anyway. It has the same, basically, you have the same chance as when you're doing nothing as going to meetings, because it's simply just not updating itself to the year 2024, and it refuses to.
And it's unfortunate. And it's, I'd really like to see treatment as a whole inpatient change. It's, I've those who have followed whole inpatient change. It's, I've those who have followed whole inpatient change. It's, I've those who have followed whole inpatient change. It's, I've those who have followed whole inpatient change.
Hold on one second. I'm going to tell this.
Okay, he's going off. Sorry, you guys. No, and I think a lot of things with like NA said gave them more contacts is there are a lot of people who are like court ordered to go to meetings, so they don't even really want to be in recovery and they're going there. And I think that's an unfortunate part also, because you do have a lot of people that don't really want to be there. They're just their probation or whatnot, their drug court is requiring them to attend meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, get your paper signed. And
Okay. I just let everybody, I'm like, please stop calling. You know, I'll call you back. Like 2, 3 times. It's like you're not getting like I'm busy, you know? My God. Anyway, hold on. I like Justin's Zoom meetings. They are the best. Hey, HR, thank you so much. It isn't my meeting either. It's me and Macaulay actually started this, but it's ours, you know? Like I don't like it. It's my meeting. I just, you know what it is? Here's the thing is the number one thing in AA is resentments are our greatest offender, correct? I don't know if you've heard that over and over and over again. If you go to AA, you'll hear over and over that resentments are the worst thing that could happen to us. And if we have a resentment and we don't write it down and see our part in it and et cetera, we're gonna go back to using. So my resentment against the treatment industry, and it was a big resentment when I did Ibogaine and I was cured basically in 11 hours. I had a huge resentment. But what did I do? I started my own. I opened up my own rehab. You know, I was I had a resentment with how they were detoxing people in rehabs. I couldn't believe the pain and agony that I went through. And the last time that I went to rehab before I did Ibogaine, I snuck a THC pen in and I was able to sleep and eat. And it just was boggling me like, this is legal. Why am I not allowed to have this? And it's absolutely ridiculous. Like anything that'll get me through this, why aren't you giving me? They wouldn't even give me a benzo like when I'm like close to a panic attack. No, that's not part of our protocol. Who cares? I need a Valium, you know?
Yeah. Brooke was telling me today we were talking about energy drinks because like I drink the occasional energy drink and she said that was considered contraband at the place in Maryland. An energy drink was.
You see how ludicrous this is? And you know what? There's no oversight to it. There really isn't. There's no oversight to it. You know, when I walk into I've toured a lot of these rehabs here in Vegas because I want them to send their patients to us at least for the detox part. You can stay and program them and keep them for your IOP and sober living for months and this and do whatever you want, but at least give them some compassion and let them detox without these heavy, awful symptoms. The worst that we've ever got on the cow scale is mild to moderate.
Wow.
With everything, with 190 milligrams of methadone, it just got to moderate. With some guy, he was on 5 grams of fentanyl and 22 milligrams of Xanax, moderate. That doesn't happen in traditional rehab, period. And not only that, but the way that we're treating the patients is so radically different. We're allowing them to have their phones. They can have their laptops. I'm not gonna go searching their messages and see if they're contacting their dealer, that's not my job. My job is to make sure that they're safe and get detoxed, you know? And it's a very, very different way to go about that. I've had patients that have hit me up before and they're like, hey, you know, Las Vegas, you know what's legal? Cannabis. And I'm like, what are you trying to say to me? Well, I'm just saying it's legal there. And I'm like, I know what you're trying to say, dude. We don't care. If you feel like it's going to help you for those first like couple of days, or even if you feel like you need it, we're not going to shame you because that's your decision. And I do not have this belief that it is a gateway drug that is going to lead you back to heroin. And members will say, well, anything mind altering will take you back to your drug of choice. Where are the studies on this? Where's any peer-reviewed study that says once you're a pickle, you can't go back to being a cucumber? That's a big AA saying too. Once you're a pickle, you can't be a cucumber. Once you're an addict, you can't be a normal person. That's bullshit. You know, it's bullshit.
So, for the ketamine treatments and the NAD, what's the longest amount of detox you have found you do?
Oh, okay, definitely benzo. Yeah,
Benzo, and how
benzo.
many days do you think?
It could be, I mean, everybody's different the way that they tolerate the medicine. And the younger they are, the more the medicine is going to be effective because you already have pretty high NAD plus levels when you're young. When you're like my age and you're starting to get a gray beard and wrinkling and everything like that, your NAD levels are starting to go down. So the younger you are, the more effective it's going to be. We had a guy who was Klonopin for 20 years. He was out of here in less than 2 weeks.
Wow.
And he didn't even come here for Klonopin. He came here for crack. And yeah, try getting a crack addict on a plane in Connecticut to come here. Like, oh my God, like herding cats. But we eventually got him out here and he handed over his bottle of Klonopin. And I'm like, why are you handing this to me? He's like, don't we get to handle our meds? And I'm like, no. He's like, I can just have them. And I'm like, if you want, do you want to come off them? He's like, no way am I going through a benzo detox. I go, that's your choice. By day 3, he said to me, I don't want them anymore. I
Didn't even
feel
have a desire.
no desire,
Hmm.
no desire. And he felt like the NAD was holding him. And it was. And he got off a 20-year Klonopin habit in less than 2 weeks. And you know what? Here's what's wild about this guy. He had almost a panic attack in the ketamine chair because I was sending him to a 12-step aftercare. I was sending him there because it was the only place with organic farming and a couple of the other things that he really wanted to do. And I said, okay, dude, I know you're not a fan of 12-step, but let's just give this a try. And he had almost a panic attack in the ketamine chair. I don't want to go to AA, I don't want to go to AA. And I had to come in and say, okay, we're not doing that. Don't worry. Over. Turns out he's got 2 years now, and it's all because of AA. He went back home, he went to a meeting, he absolutely loved it. He got really into the program. That became his community, his connection, his support, and he is thriving in AA.
Good for him.
But here's the thing is like, we support that. They don't support what we do to keep ourselves mentally stable. They would see like something like me doing ayahuasca as a relapse. You did something mind altering. So, I did something mind altering 10 and a half years ago that showed me that I had childhood trauma. And ever since, I've never had a craving for opiates. Mm-hmm. Not once, and nor do I live this AA life of purity, or feel like I need to. If I want to drink with dinner, I'm going to have a drink with dinner. But here's the thing. I have so much NAD plus in me, and anybody with me can vouch for this. I try. And I'm about 2 or 3 sipper and I'm like, whoa, okay. I just, like it's the NAD, my body is so pumped up on NAD right now that it's just not feeling the alcohol at all. So it's never my thing.
So, when they're done with your detox program, then you try to send them to like a traditional rehab or outpatient, or how does that normally work?
You know what? It's completely different. So what I try to do is over the 2 weeks that they're here is assess the situation and where they would probably thrive. I push aftercare. I push outpatient programs. I push 30-day stays on people because, someone asked me just a little while ago while I was in the doctor's office. They were like, what is your success rate? Me and the doctor are looking at each other like neither of us know. But what we can guesstimate is people that have come to us, gone through, every infusion that we recommend, and then get into some kind of recovery. I don't care what that is, some kind of recovery. We haven't heard of any relapses. That's wild.
Wow.
If they come here, they do all the infusions and then do nothing when they go home, it's about 50-50. 50-50 is frigging amazing still. But when I tell the people this, I'm like, please, all you have to do is get into recovery to almost guarantee in a way that you're going to be okay. You have a great foundation. The problem with rehabs, okay, and this is why me and the doctor basically designed this, is we want to leave the patients, when they leave us, very mild depression, if any, very mild anxiety, if any, very mild symptoms of PTSD, and same thing with cravings, if any. You know, everybody's different with what they report to us, but when it comes to pause, we don't really hear about it. And we also leave them on these pills for months afterwards. And by leaving them on the pills and keeping the NAD going and turbocharging their cells, we're not hearing about pause really, you know? But does depression come back? Does anxiety come back? You know, of course it does. Do cravings come back? Of course they do. And when they do, that's time for a booster. That's when we give them just one. They'd come back, they get one infusion, and they're good. Everybody's different with how many boosters they might need. Mac Loves German Cars was actually here. So you guys can ask him anything. When he gives a price, please don't listen, because he got away.
I've been reading his comments,
Oh, really?
and yeah, I have. And because I know you've mentioned to me as far as insurance is kind of a bitch and doesn't want to cover this stuff either, right? As far as the ketamine, because I had actually looked into ketamine therapy here locally for myself for like PTSD and depression. And I know just for that, the price and insurance not covering, I think it was like close to $3,000 for like 6 sessions for just that. But that didn't include, you know, obviously it wasn't a detox. It was just these infusions.
Got it. Okay. Mac Loves German Cars. I just want to respond to this real quick. He says he was here for 8 days, 6 infusions, 6 days in a row, off day 7, went home day 8. That doesn't really ever happen, ever, guys. You're not done with a 21-year Suboxone habit in a week, you know? He was ready to go home, and we would have recommended probably another 2. Do you think, Mac, that would have been a good idea or no? Mac is still sober and he's doing great. But I think he left a little before, we recommended. I think the doctor probably recommended 8 or more for him. And yeah, he left at 6. But I mean, for anybody to go home 1 week after Suboxone, after 21 years of Suboxone, that's unheard of. That is completely like, and not to be patting myself on the back here, but I think this is the biggest game changer that the field of recovery has seen since the MATs were introduced.
Somebody had asked, how do the infusions make you feel?
Well, ketamine is a dissociative. Okay, and people say it's a hallucinogen. No, it's a dissociative, but it definitely has hallucinogenic properties to it. So yes, you might see some sacred geometry. You might see old pets, that might have passed, or relatives that might have passed. She heard me. Things like that happen. You go on a little bit of an amusement park ride, and the best way to go about it is just letting go. And whatever happens to you, just let go. Be okay with it. Whatever you see, let go and be okay with it. Because when you let go and you stop fighting against the medicine, that's when it really starts working and healing you. And the great thing about this is you're not just getting detox. It's doing some serious psychological work on you over these 2 weeks. And, this is being done just with you and the medicine. It's not somebody else telling you this is what's going on with you, this is what's going on with you. It's you and the medicine figuring this out.
How long does the infusion usually last?
Great question. Everybody's different, and it matters how many milligrams we're putting in the bag. We start everybody off with 1,500 milligrams of BR NAD, and we decrease from there depending on how they're feeling. And infusions can last. I've had 1,000 milligram infusion that lasted hour and a half. But with some of the patients, they're a little bit more pain sensitive, because they're coming off opiates. So sometimes 2 to 4 hours it could be. Like 4 hours is really, really long, but 2 hours is like 2.5. Everybody's different though, everybody's different. And we adjust the drip rate as the person is going. If they're a little bit uncomfortable, we'll slow it down a little bit. If they're having a little bit of anxiety, we might give them something for that. Like Dr. Lung has really tinkered with this. He's not like your average doctor and just goes by protocol. He'll try these different things, He'll be like, yes, this makes sense. This makes sense. Next thing you know, I mean, what he has going right now is not what we started with 4 years ago. 4 years ago, it was definitely most of the patients were more on the moderate side. Now it's more, a little bit more on the mild side. I cannot guarantee that. I can say mild to moderate for everybody, but now it just seems like the patients are having a little bit more of the mild, you know? And the toughest thing that we've detoxed so far, xylazine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're basically the only one that has a protocol for it. Yeah, but with xylazine, and also we have to get a little bit creative with it too. You know, with the holistic meds that we're using outside of the practice, you know, whether it's extracts of medicine or RSO oil or CBD or CBG that's helping them sleep, or even the doctor just brought this mushroom tincture, not illegal ones, but Amanita, and it's an incredible sleep tincture, you know, that we use. Like, why wouldn't we want people sleeping, you know?
Now, does your place, is it only detox, or because I know there's people who get ketamine infusions for chronic pain even, and they got off their opioids and they come back and get infusions for pain, and because ketamine I know we use in the ICU as an analgesic.
Okay, great question. I would say Dr. Leong might correct me tomorrow, but I think it's about 20% of our patients or so are just our addiction alcohol patients. The rest are chronic pain, long haulers with COVID, autoimmune disorders, brain injuries, brain fog, and of course you always get the anti-aging people. The anti-aging people, like they're, of course, because I mean, NAD is an amazing anti-aging medicine. Like right after I take a shot of it, it's like my face just like changes. I'm not even kidding. It takes like about 10 seconds and then all of a sudden like wrinkles start disappearing and I'm like, wow. Like it makes Botox look like a joke.
Oh, that's
like
awesome.
It's really, yeah, for anti-aging, it's amazing. I'll tell you this. I am more obsessed with NAD plus than I ever was with any illicit substances, because this is giving me what I was looking for with the illicit substances. I got ketamine for myself. He originally treated me for PTSD back in the day. It worked and then some. So I haven't needed a ketamine infusion in about 3 years. But what I do is I take those tablets on a daily basis. And I don't know what it is, but I've never felt more balanced. I have ADHD, so you know how that is. And this has been the best medication that I have used so far for my ADD. I'm able to focus. I'm able to sit here and listen and, you know, a little bit more because I'm almost off the charts with ADHD.
I feel like it's worse with age too. Like, because I've noticed, I think mine has exacerbated with age.
So interesting you said that, because I would constantly say to my therapist, I think early dementia is setting in.
No, for real. Seriously.
I was like, it seems like it's just getting a little bit worse. It's early. And she's like, Justin, I'm going to say this again. This is ADHD. You know, this is a classic sign of it, you know? And you know what? I've learned to live with it. I've learned to cope. You know, I don't use it as an excuse anymore. You know, I can't do it. I'm ADHD. No, that means that I just have to try a little bit harder. You know, I might have to work a little bit harder. I might have to focus a little bit more, you know, but NAD has given me what I was looking for all those years with benzos and opiates. Balance, peace.
Now, do you take any type of stimulant for your ADHD?
No.
I do. And it's still bad. That's the thing. It's still bad.
They don't, yeah, I know. They didn't work for me, one, and they made me a little cuckoo. You know, like, yeah, what was I on? Adderall, the really expensive one that was like $400 a month. Is it modafinil? Yeah, I think it's modafinil. And Ritalin also I tried. And they all just gave me jitters. You know, there's ADHD and then there's ADD. You know, ADD people really don't do well with stimulants. I was never a stimulant guy, period. Like for me, I have a little bit of caffeine right now. It's like, whoa, hey. But yeah, for when it comes to the ADHD though, and it comes to medicine, There has been nothing that compares to this. Like, I mean, I'm not going to recommend it for anybody to stop their medication. God, no, because that goes against everything I believe in. But look into NAD plus, and if you're looking into NAD plus, make sure that you're looking into BR NAD plus, because there is a night and day difference. I get NAD plus from my compound pharmacy because it's so cheap compared to what we use. What we use is very, very expensive. What they do in compound pharmacy is legit. But when I give myself a subcutaneous shot of BR NAD, it's like a bee sting. You can feel it, and then it immediately hits your stomach and you feel it. When I give myself a subcutaneous shot of compound pharmacy NAD, and they're a legit compound pharmacy, it feels like water going in. I can hardly even like feel it. It's just like, okay, no problem. You know, there's a huge difference, like a huge difference.
No, I know. I'm curious your opinion, which I suspect I know it'll be about microdosing, as far as with people who do that. I've heard a lot of people say it really worked for them, even with their ADHD, like was microdosing and just depression, all of the above.
Oh my God. I do usually about like 3 a year. I'll take them every other day for about 2 months. And what will happen within the first week, everything that I've been stuffing down will come to the surface. So all of a sudden, I might feel a little bit extra anxious. I might feel a little bit of depression. I might become really, really like a B word. You know, just snapping and a little bit angry. But then the next day, I'm like as happy as can be. And what it feels like is doing, and what others have, you know, explained to me is going on, is it's bringing all these things to the surface so they are no longer affecting you. You know, do I want to see these horrible visions sometimes? You know, like when I did Ibogaine, do I want to see myself, you know, being SA'd at 3? No, it's horrific. But by seeing that and watching that and then watching it erase, having it brought to the surface, it's no longer affecting me. And also here's another one. NA says 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough, right? Well, you don't know, but that's a big NA statement, is when it comes to drugs, if you take 1, you won't stop. You don't stop. What happened with me was about 3 years ago, I got into a brutal car accident. I was in the trauma unit. And, you know, right away, they were like, we got to give you morphine. And I'm like, hey, whoa, I'm an ex-addict. And they're like, it doesn't matter. You're going to go into shock. So we got to give it to you. And they gave me that, and they gave me Dilaudid. Mm-hmm. And it did not do the same thing for me that it used to do for me. It used to give me this feeling, finally at peace. Now it was like this and starting to get mean. And I'm like, what's going on here? And then the next day, when I tried to, sorry, not too much information, but tried to go to the bathroom, it wasn't happening. And I'm like, okay, this is over. Even though I had a month's prescription, because it was broken ribs, I was like, this isn't happening. And I knew right there that everything that I kind of learned in those rooms was wrong. You know, I won't even say, oh, some of it is good. I look at all of it now, and I'm just like, holy shit. But I'll tell you what it is good for. Here's what it's good for: community, connection, support. And all 3 of those are vital to a lot of us in the beginning of recovery.
Yeah.
They're vital, you know, but we just need a community of people that aren't shaming us or judging us or playing doctor with us or playing therapist with us.
Yeah, that's when I get frustrated with my comments, because the people who are very supportive of AANA, they want to argue like it's not their job to change the program. And I'm like, but you don't understand how important it is for all people in recovery to have community. And that's the thing, is like, why can't we just support recovery, period? And why does, you know, that's the thing, recovery is the goal, and thriving. And I always say, I'm like, I feel like majority of people, just in my interaction over the years with patients, nobody likes to be dependent on a medication because the side effects that are involved, like if people could have it their way, they would prefer to do abstinence in a lot of ways, you know, when it comes to like, you know, the side effects with meds. And I think they're underestimating that because they, you know, they feel shame. And it upsets me because they shouldn't feel shame for being on something that they're still them. Like it's my daughter. It's not the daughter in active drug use.
No, it's,
Yeah.
if I didn't switch MATs back in '98, I think it was, and I got on the methadone, I would have not made it. I definitely would not have made it. I was that guy that, you know, I mean, I really did about 30 rehabs. I lost count. So I don't know the real number. I just say 30. But I was that guy that could never get 90 days in 17 years, you know, and for it to be this easy over the last 10 and a half years goes against everything that I was taught. I was taught that my disease is always going to be doing push-ups outside. You know, I just had to compensate my drug of choice from patients, my drug of choice. Is there even one little part of me that thinks about taking that shit?
No.
Not even
Because you did the work. You healed mentally. And I think that's what's so important is, you know, give people the option to be on something that takes the cravings away so they can start doing the work and work through it and get their life back and see that life can be a beautiful thing without being fucked up all the time. You know what I mean? It's so important.
We have a woman here right now coming off Oxy, and it's her first detox ever. So I was expecting, oh boy, she's gonna just be like freaking out, you know, like what the hell is going on? Why is my body doing this? And it has been very, very easy for her. And I never once took away her oxys for those first 5 days. They were right next to her bed. And I said to her, if it ever gets too bad, you know, let me know and we'll try something else. And if it's too bad, you can always have one. By letting them know that just like takes away so much anxiety from these people. And then what did we do on, I think it was day 5? She just handed them over. She's like, I'm definitely done.
You're handing them the power also. Like you're giving it, and that is so important.
Yeah.
Because if you isolate, like I tell people, like with rehab, inpatient rehab, it's such a controlled environment and that's swell, right? But the real work begins when they leave, you guys. Like that's, the controlled environment isn't reality. When they leave, it's hard.
And if you have to be locked up in order to get recovery, it's probably not going to happen at that point. Like mom and dad are shoving you in there and locking you up, or your husband is like saying, you know, it's probably not going to work that way. You know, people just have to be sick of being sick.
Yeah.
And then it starts to work. So yeah, also to get back to the Ibogaine thing though, I see it all over TikTok. It talks about Ibogaine. Ibogaine is the magic pill and this and that. And there is no magic pill. You know, I took care of hundreds of people afterwards. I thought it was going to be easy because I thought everybody was going to have an experience like me. I came back, I wanted to feed the homeless. You know, I wanted to be a different person. I didn't want to go and DJ hip hop. You know, I've been a hip hop DJ for 25 years. I just wasn't feeling it, you know. So I quit a couple of jobs and, you know, started doing yoga, started rescuing animals, and like life just changed. I thought everybody was going to have that same kind of experience after Ibogaine. That's not true. About 25% did though. You know, 25, 30% did and completely changed their lives and never ever picked up again. You know, but like I said, you know, these places promise withdrawal free and everything like that. No, unless they have a special type of Ibogaine that I don't know about now. But most of the people that came to me in heavy withdrawals. So,
Yeah.
and not only that, but the reason why I started Aftercare is because I was answering phone calls for an Ibogaine clinic. They hired me right away. And what I was witnessing was people were going down there for 4 or 5 days, going back to their toxic environment and not even lasting 24 hours. And I'm like, what's the missing component here? What is, oh, and it came to me actually on a psychedelic trip. It was like, you need to start your own.
Is it like the reintegration that they talk about with ayahuasca and whatnot?
We basically, we had a rehab though, but it was a house. It was a beautiful house, 8-bedroom mansion, and everybody got their own room. I didn't double up on beds. I didn't put bunk beds in there so I could triple the amount of money I was making and make people uncomfortable. No, they're adults. Why am I going to put a roommate in their room that is, snoring all night or doing other things? They don't need that. They need to heal. And you're not going to heal with 3-4 roommates in bunk beds, all over the room. And I just didn't want to do that. And not only that, but I kept it very, very reasonably priced too. Which is something that our rehabs don't do. And that's another thing with what we do here at Clarity. Everybody's like, oh, you're just in it for the money. No, we're not. Like, we are ridiculously reasonable. The average 12-step rehab is about $50,000 out of pocket or more. The ones in California go up to 70 and possibly up to 100. Our average patient is right around 15, a little bit more, a little bit less, but it can range anywhere from 10 to 20. So when Mac Loves German Cars says, I spent $9,500 or what it was, that doesn't happen ever. Like, it happened with him, but expect 10 to 20. And the average being right around 15. And also go with our recommendations. If we recommend 8, Dr. Leung is not the type of doctor who's trying to make a couple of extra bucks. That's why I can work with him, because I had such resentments against doctors, against psychologists, against all these people that I felt like were my enemy in a way. And then I meet this doctor who's so loving, so stable, so listening to people, not judging anybody. I mean, it's like breaking my heart to even think about it, And he was the first doctor. When I told him about what I was doing, I told plenty of physicians, I was like, hey, I have people off heroin in less than a week and they're feeling amazing and this and that. And we're using frog venom and psychedelics, and they would just walk away. Nobody ever listened. Dr. Leon was like, really? Can I come over? Can I meet these people? And I'm like, really, you're interested? I was just blown away. And he came over that night. It's not even like he waited. He was like, I need to see what's going on. And right away, I started referring patients to him that were still experiencing heavy symptoms of depression. Even after 5-MeO DMT, even after ibogaine, even after combo, there was still some depression there. We had one guy who was SA'd by both of his parents, and nothing was working with him, nothing. And he was so scared to do any other psychedelic. He's like, I've been through it, I'm done. I was like, please give this a try. We put him in the ketamine chair, put the medicine in him, and within about 5 seconds, and you know this, he was relaxed and there was a smile on his face. The next day, he went from somebody who wasn't speaking to anybody in the rehab and was just loner guy to like a social butterfly. Wow. And I knew right there, I was like, wow, this is making what I do look amateurish, And we just organically started working together. And during one of my trips, I'm not going to lie about it, he told me to tell the doctor about NAD+ and how important it is. I'm like, well, I'll tell him some other time I'm tripping. And then they're like, no, as soon as you get done with this, you call him right away. And I did. And, right away, he's like, oh, yeah, we all know about that. It's a coenzyme, and explaining it to me. But he's like, yeah, it's nice and everything. And then he called me back and he's like, it's available. And I'm going to go down to Louisiana and learn everything there is possible about it. And I'll be back in 10 days. And I'm like, it's that big of a deal? And he's like, it's going to change medicine.
That's awesome.
Those were his words. It's going to change medicine. And what I have witnessed over the last 4 years, mind-blowing. You can't make, it's one thing for me to sit here and talk about it. It's another thing to go through my TikTok and watch these videos, listen to these people, watch how they're getting better so rapidly, so quickly. On day 2, people are sleeping. On day 2, I was curled up in a ball, defecating on myself. You know, that's what a detox is like. It's not sitting in bed and like this and sleeping, but the combination of what the doctor is doing and what I do on the caretaking side with the holistic medicine and all the different practices, it just seems to, you know, synergistically really work well for these patients, exceptionally well.
So you're the one basically after the,
Content age restricted. Okay,
oh,
that's okay.
okay, that's fine. I'm not. I usually get that in my lives. I'm surprised it took so long. But I was gonna say, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, you're the main point of contact when they leave, like after their infusion, they stay in contact with you, kind of.
Before, during, and after.
Yeah, during like while when they go to their Airbnb and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And usually for the first 4 nights, they'll bring somebody with them that doesn't have to be a medical professional, just because the withdrawals never exceed more than mild to moderate. So what I do though is I will keep a watch for the first 4 days, you know, and I try to keep them sleeping the entire time. Whatever it takes to keep them sleeping, we keep them sleeping, you know, and most of our patients are sleeping sometimes 6-8 hour nights, sometimes even like 80-90% of the day they're sleeping. Everybody's different, but I've never seen anything like that where somebody coming off fentanyl is sleeping 80% of the day on day 2.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. So why isn't this the gold standard?
No. Oh.
Why aren't we building factories, you know, and mass producing BR NAD, you know, and
Because it's not about getting people better. That's
noticed
why.
that. I noticed that. I
We know
noticed
why.
after my 30th rehab trip, I was like, I'm just doing the same thing like a hamster on a wheel, you know, just round and round and round. And then I go here. They tell me to go to AA. I go to AA. I relapse. I come back here. They tell me to go to AA and keep coming back. And I just never got off it. And Ibogaine. And that just opened my eyes and said, hey, you've been lied to all these years, you know, or you've been given a lot of misinformation. And I knew when I walked into my first meeting after Ibogaine, I was not going to get better in a room full of people that were still sick. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that people in AA are still sick, but there's a lot of unhealed trauma in those rooms. There's a lot of cross addiction going on. So, you know, when I walked in there and people were speaking about like how they're now a man of God, and I'm like, you go to a massage parlor as soon as you're done with this meeting, you have to watch.
Let's not forget about 13th stepping. My daughter has informed me about all that, and she'd say, you know, a lot of people go into those meetings, you know, they're not ready for recovery. They're trying to make themselves look cute and more focused on checking out the people in the room and dating and other options than recovery.
The only time one of the only times I used heroin in Las Vegas was I got clean. I got out of rehab. I had a new sponsor in AA, and I was like maybe 2 weeks clean or something at that time. The guy comes in, nodding off the whole time, and I mean, like literally just nodding off in the meeting. My sponsor's like, you know what your job is? And I'm like, no. He's like, you go up to the new guy and introduce yourself and welcome him and give him your number. And I'm like, you think that's a good idea? He's like, it's a great idea. That's how we stay sober. You know, we can't keep it if we can't have it, if we can't give it away or whatever it is. And I'm like, okay. So I walked up to the new guy and I'm like, you're pretty high, dude, aren't you? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, can you get right now? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I got a lot of money. Let's go. And I took him. And my sponsor was like, where are you going? I was like, I'll be right back. I'm helping him. You know, I mean, it's a toxic environment, you know, and some people say, well, not my meeting. My meeting is like this. And well, that hasn't been my experience. And I've lost a lot of friends that unnecessarily passed because of misinformation or because of the toxic relationships that are created in the rooms between men and women sometimes. This guy unalived my good friend and then unalived himself because he thought that she was checking out other guys in a meeting.
So my daughter has expressed, she had said if she had decided to go to treatment again, she would want to go to a woman's only rehab because she said that naturally, sex, dopamine release, and it's, and looking, you get distracted. And so you're looking at, the opposite sex and wanting to go that way, maybe even the same sex, but she found it was more the opposite sex and looking for that dopamine, release. And that she's like, the codependency is still there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, what I decided, a long time ago, even before I did Ibogaine, that I was just going to go to men's meetings because I was so sick of that bullshit that was going on. And I wasn't going to AA to find a new date. I really wanted to get better, and I saw all that bullshit going on. I didn't want any part of it. So I just went to men's meetings. But when I did go to mixed meetings, and I'm hanging out, the guys just think I'm one of the guys, and they would bring up stuff like, dude, you checking out all the fresh new meat? And I'm like, what'd you just say? Like, even before I did a psychedelic, I still had some kind of a conscience, I might have been done drugs, but I knew that I wasn't going to be a predator. I'm not coming to meetings to get that dopamine release. Yeah, no. And that part about it is so toxic, and the relationships that can come from there. I'm sure there's some people that are doing great and met each other and fell in love and, and everything's great. But people in early recovery that are finding each other, oh boy, it's usually going to be an absolute mess. I remember telling this one rehab I went away to for 2 months. And of course I got a rehab girlfriend, and I walked into the owner's office and I was, listen, me and Katie love each other. There's nothing you can do to stop us. As soon as we get out of here, we're getting married. And the guy was an ex-Navy SEAL. And he's just looking at me going.
Did you read Matthew Perry's book?
No.
Like, he talks about that, how he'd fall in love. He talks about that numerous times. He'd fall in love with somebody as soon as he walked into the new rehab.
That was me. But I always went by the rules, which is kind of weird because I'm not that type of guy. But whenever I checked in, I took it really serious. I never checked in just because someone was forcing me. Mm-hmm. I checked in because I didn't want to live like this. I just didn't know how to stop. And every single time I would leave rehab, there was one time I left Brotman Hospital in LA, and I'm at LAX airport waiting for my plane. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, I hear my name being over the mic, Justin Hoffman, please come to gate 11. And I'm just confused. I don't know what's going on. Someone came out and grabbed me, put me into a wheelchair and wheeled me onto the plane because I couldn't even function. And this is 10 days. I spent 10 days there, spent over $15,000 of my own money. And I am literally in a wheelchair. What do you think I'm going to do when I go back to Vegas? Just white knuckle it and just, stick it out? No, I'm going to want to feel better. I don't want to feel like I can't even get on a plane. So that's been our goal is we want to leave patients the exact opposite. We want them leaving here feeling the best they ever have. And is that possible? Yes, with NAD, definitely. And with ketamine, definitely. Ketamine success rate for alcohol use disorder. They just did a study in England that showed 84% when you combine ketamine and psychotherapy, 84% success rate of complete abstinence, not just a drink here and there. Complete abstinence was 84%.
That's awesome.
Why isn't this being used in every single rehab? And I'll tell you, because I've talked to these local rehabs. It's because it's mind altering. I'm like, it's just mind altering. So to put an end to all of this. And they're like, doesn't matter. A drug is a drug is a drug. And I'm like, oh my fucking God. It's literally, it's like talking to people that are zombified sometimes.
Do you, when it comes to alcohol use disorder, you guys are able to keep people from developing DTs with the ketamine treatment and NADs?
Great question. Because the two most dangerous drugs to detox from are Xanax and alcohol, Klonopin actually goes in there too. But alcohol is actually probably the easiest for us out of everything. We rarely even see them hardly registering on the withdrawal scale. The most I saw from our last guy, who was, I think, about 750 milliliters of bourbon a day, and he had like a little bit of this the first day. And I gave him a subcutaneous shot of NAD, took it away in 10 minutes maybe, or less. And that was as bad as it got. And then he ordered $100 worth of sushi to be delivered. He ate that much sushi on about 32 hours or so into it. That's unheard of.
And those who, yeah, and those who don't know, so like I work in the ICU and we detox a lot of people out off of alcohol. And every protocol in the hospitals, it's benzos. It's like heavy duty benzos or Precedex. We usually put them on Precedex, and then they're getting benzos on top of it. And that's how we detox, and it's very ugly. It's never pleasant. It's never easy, even in that controlled setting. I've only a few times had people require intubation because the DTs were so bad. It's been a long time, Precedex, since we've utilized that. It's done really well to help control. But I mean, they get violent, it gets crazy. So that's why I was interested in hearing that. And somebody had asked, can I prescribe narcotics being a provider? I can't, because I hold a DEA. So I can prescribe controlled substances.
Wow. Okay. And yeah, that when it comes to alcohol, that's the best that we can do right now in traditional spaces is benzo, Valium or Ativan, and some other meds, comfort meds. But what we're seeing is not the normal. It's just not normal. For somebody not to go through alcohol withdrawal is ugly, just like you said. Every single time I would be going through opiate withdrawal, and my alcoholic roommate would definitely be worse than me on day 2. Way worse than me, but then they were able to sleep. So I was kind of always jealous of that, but the alcohol withdrawals were horrible, not with us. That's actually, I would put that as, I never want to say easy, one of the least difficult substances for us to detox people off. And we've had great results with that. Yeah.
Because those who maybe don't know, when you're detoxing off alcohol or benzos, you're more likely you could have a seizure. That's something that's one of the biggest concerns when detoxing at home off of it. And that's why you'll always hear me say, like, that's the place of like detox is when it comes to alcohol or benzos, because the seizures aren't pretty. It's bad.
Most people also don't know this. Before anti-seizure medicines, back in the early days of AA, 1 out of 4 used to die that way. 1 out of 4, 25% would die from detox. So what did they do? They didn't have anti-seizure medicines. They would have a bottle of liquor in the back of the room.
I worked at a hospital in Washington State. For certain people, they will bring beer on the tray still, so people won't go into withdrawal if they're in the hospital for something else and they don't want to get better.
Yeah, alcohol is serious, and seizures are serious. I've seen people in seizures. I've had a seizure from benzo withdrawal while I was DJing at Dre's nightclub, and I'm playing for 1,000 people or so, and all of a sudden I wake up and there's EMTs, that are giving me oxygen, and I'm like, what happened? They're like, you just dropped. And I'm like, what happened in the room? They're like, we had to close it. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, I'm not on drugs. I swear I'm off drugs, and that's the problem, And it's hard for people to understand that, though,
Yeah, people realize how bad withdrawal can be.
Yeah, and especially with benzos, and also it lasts for so long, months and months and months. And then I don't know what it was with Ibogaine, but I was able to just never pick them up again, Never pick them up again. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm going to correct myself. I do keep Valium on hand. I have Valium. I have a prescription of Valium. Yeah, and there's going to be AA people that are like, dude, that's a slippery slope. Not when you're an adult. Not when you look at medication through an adult lens and a responsible lens. If I'm having something close to a panic attack, guess what? I might take one, And guess what? I'm not going to now have a free fall into active addiction because I put that into my system. That's a crazy way of thinking. You know, there's some of us that, yes, we have healed our wounds and we can approach these substances like adults. They aren't a slippery slope like everybody says. For some people, maybe they are, but it's just a matter of how much work are you doing on yourself or how much you're not. You know, it's 10 and a half years for me. And the person that I was just seeing for a little while said to me, you know, I noticed that you do something every single day for yourself, recovery based. And I'm like, yeah, I want to make sure I don't go back to that life, you know? So whether it's a class of yoga, a float tank, sitting in a salt room and meditating, or, you know, or just working with patients and stuff like that, taking them on a walk, whatever it is, I'm very, very aware of what my past was. I don't look at myself as an ex-addict even. I wouldn't even call myself that. I look at myself as someone who's recovered and now is working on the mental side of it, the learning disability side of it, and that's it, and the coping side, you know?
I think that's awesome. Do you want to open it up and answer questions if anybody has questions?
Of course.
Anybody have any questions in here?
You will turn to substance abuse and trying to find ways to prevent it. Hold on. I feel him so much. Thank you so much. My daughter was depressed and PTSD and hasn't turned to substances, but no meds and therapy are working. Tiffany, you might want to give ketamine a try. I don't know how old your daughter is, but yeah, I wish I knew about ketamine when I was 16 years old and put on SSRIs for the first time, you know, and I would get some dark thoughts even on the SSRIs, but the doctor was like, no, keep on them. And they would give me horrible side effects, and no teenager wants to have their sex drive taken away from them, you know. Ketamine is just so much of a better option, and not only that, it's just you can't compare success rates. And not only that, you don't have to take it every day. You do your 6 infusions and this is like, guys, when you're looking for a ketamine clinic, please listen to me on this one. Look for one that is doing it IV with an anesthesiologist, if possible, because Brandy, as a nurse, you know this, that nobody knows that medicine like anesthesiologists. They know what to do when anything happens, whether it's a BP spike or somebody gets a little bit of anxiety or whatever it is, they know exactly how to fix it because they've been working with this medicine for their entire career. So look for an anesthesiologist, look for IV ketamine, forget about the nasal spray. I'm not a fan of the IM injections because once they give it to you, there's no stopping it. With IV, we can just turn it off. And within a couple minutes, you're back to earth. You know, once we give you an IM, that's it. You know, you're gone until it's over, you know. But with IV, it's different. And you want to look for somebody that is really pushing the protocol of 6 sessions within a 2 to 3 week period. If they are telling you anything else, like 1 a week, that's what they're looking for. Because our patients get 6 up front, and then usually a couple of boosters throughout the year. Everybody's different, you know, usually 3 to 4 or so. So that really comes out to about 10 infusions compared to 52 that some of these places are giving people. That's crazy, you know. So yeah, be careful when you're looking for a ketamine clinic and talk to a lot of people that have gone there, you know.
And they do have ketamine clinics, you guys, really all over the country. I found, even in Florida, I was surprised at how many there actually are. So I don't know if they're available in Canada. That I do not know. Somebody had asked.
I don't know about Canada either. When I came off of 20 plus years of Xanax, I had a psychotic breakdown, hearing and seeing things. Kimberly, me too. I was completely in psychosis, so bad.
Answer questions.
That's okay. My psychosis was so bad that one of my best friends actually stopped talking to me for 2 years because he thought I was acting. He's like, this can't be real. You're acting. Stop it. Stop acting. And I'm literally like seeing things and hearing things and in a state of psychosis. And it's amazing that, yes, I just went directly. I was still in a state of psychosis and they transferred me from a rehab to a sober living. And then the sober living told me that I couldn't take Seroquel for sleep. Why would you do that? And he's like, you got to rough it out. You got to feel it so you never do it again. I'm like, I haven't slept for 4 days. I was in a state of psychosis. So I didn't sleep all night that night. And then I had a friend pick me up and take me to a psych ward. You know, it's absolutely amazing that these places are allowed to get away with this. You know, absolutely wild to me. You know, that places are still pushing an outdated, archaic way of getting better. You know, that's actually causing harm and helping about 5%. You know, but when they are shaming people on Suboxone, you're shaming a medicine that has a 40 to 60% success rate when your program is only churning out 5.
And they lie about their data. That's one thing I've talked about that pisses me off is the fact that I think that one, there needs to be more oversight. Two, they should be required to participate in third-party studies.
I agree. It's just wild to me that like also MAT isn't presented as an option when you go to rehab. You have to be abstinence based. Yep. That's crazy. That's so crazy. Like I told you, I went to Brahman Hospital the last time was probably like 12 years ago, and I snuck a little THC pen in with me because I knew what I was in store for. And for the first time, I was like, oh my God, I slept a little. I'm eating breakfast. What's going on? Like, wow, I can actually sit through these monotonous, boring groups, you know, of listening to these guys come in that you want to be nothing like, and they're pontificating about how great this program is and what it's done for them. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want this, you know? I don't want this to be my life. But
I don't think a rehab should be allowed to treat opioid use disorder unless they're offering the gold standard. I think that should be an option, but they want to say they're MAT friendly by only offering Vivitrol, and which is not the gold standard.
No, it isn't. And that's what it is. The way that they're looking at it through an AA lens still. And they're seeing you taking something that is in the opioid family. And that's why that's a no. You're still on drugs. Even though you're, you know, being a responsible mother, a responsible employee, you know, a good partner, it doesn't matter. To them, you're still on a drug. And until you're completely clean of everything, you're not going to get this very simple program that everybody gets unless you're constitutionally incapable of getting our simple program. I mean, it's crazy to me. Like crazy that this is still going on, that we're still looking to 1939 for answers to a problem in 2024. That would be the equivalent of, Brandy, of you walking in as a nurse into a patient's room and saying, oh, you do have a serious infection. I'll be right back with the leeches.
Yeah.
There's no difference. That's where we're at in the field of recovery. We're still using leeches. If I was to compare it to cars, we're driving Ford Model Ts compared to Teslas. You know, why are we looking to the 30s for an answer now?
And that's, you know, I'll have people who will argue with me and say, you know, about, well, you know, obviously look at all the studies that have come out about certain meds and how wrong they were. I'm like, that's why you stay up to date on evidence. Like, it changes all the time.
That's called science.
It's all science-based. Like, somebody makes a hypothesis and you test. Like, certain meds, you discover that, you know, you make them for something else, and then you discover they help lashes. I can't remember what med it was, but they discovered that people's lashes were coming in super thick and beautiful. So now, like, spa places give that med to help give you lashes. And it was originally created for something completely different.
It's it's just wild to me that this is actually going on still. And you know, I feel like sometimes like we're the Jetsons living in a Flintstones world. You know, they want to drive around in a car with rock wheels, you know, whereas we're in flying saucer land, you know. We have maids, you know, that can like do all this for us, like robot maids and stuff like that. They're still stuck in the Stone Age. It's and not only that, but charging you over $50,000 to tell you to go to AA.
Exactly. And I've talked a
No
lot about
therapy.
this, and
No therapy. Just me.
no therapy.
No therapy.
Yeah.
No
And
professionals involved.
that's the thing. And places that do say offer like a true like psychologist that sees them, maybe if you're lucky once a week, which I'm sorry, if I'm paying $30,000 to $40,000 a month, then my child or whoever should be getting that one-on-one for an hour daily for at least 4 to 5 days. Daily.
Daily. When you're
And
going through it like that, daily.
daily. That's why, because you get what, 30 days, right? Most places, insurance only approves 30 days. And that's the thing. If you should be getting it daily during that time, it shouldn't be half-assed. Because you can get free AA and not, pay that much. It's really just giving you a safe space, as they say.
But it's actually, sometimes it's
Not. I know.
Sometimes even the staff will mess up on giving patients medications. Like, oops, I forgot to give him his anti-seizure medicine. Nothing can happen, right? Like,
Yeah. So my daughter, she was in a place for a month. It was a detox, and they got her on her Suboxone, but the psych MP, because they called themselves dual diagnosis, the psych MP saw her, didn't even have to make a diagnosis. She had already had that done, already knew what meds. It was just restarting her meds. The entire month she was there, she never received one dose of her psych meds. Not once. But we paid for the psych evals, but it's like, this is what happens, because anybody can call themselves a dual diagnosis, but it be a very half-ass approach. They just subcontract, like a psych MP to see them. And really, should we be prescribing psych meds in that first 30 days when they're detoxing?
yeah, things need to drastically change. And I'm so glad that, oh, I got a hat on now. Oh, look at it, I'm not bald. There needs to be some serious reform. I feel like you're one of the voices that could be responsible for making some great change. I think that I could envision right now you speaking in front of Congress and saying, this is what's going on in our treatment system. We are only using one way. Our courts are ordering sex offenders to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, making it a very dangerous space. And not only that, but AA was approached, and they actually had the camera on them. They walked into the New York office and they said, hey, I have contacted you over and over and over. Can we please place signs in here that there's a good chance that you could be sitting next to a sex offender, and to be very careful with who you talk to here. AA said, no, that will scare people away. So preserving AA is more important than keeping people safe. That's nuts to me. Like, how is this even allowed? And I'll tell you this, here's where it gets even crazier, okay? Bill W. was asked what he wanted to be remembered for. You would think AA, right? AA. No, he wanted to be remembered for his niacin therapy experiments. What is niacin? A precursor to NAD+. So he was onto the NAD+ way before me and Dr. Leon.
Well, he did LSD. I mean, when you hear about it, because he thought it would cause like people to experience DTs basically and help keep them sober, from my understanding.
What the story was is about 20 years after he founded, I guess, the program, he was still suffering from clinical depression. Obviously, the steps weren't relieving and the promises weren't coming true. And what he did, he was contacted, I think it was Aldous Huxley contacted him. He went down to San Diego and he worked with LSD. I think it was for like a 2-week period. He came back to the board and he suggested that this become a part of the program. They said, Bill, you're crazy, get out of here. Prayer is our bedrock, And in a way, he was kind of stepping on the toes of religion, saying, we don't need prayer. We can just use this substance. They didn't like that. So he was kind of like, in a way, shunned. So here's the thing, though. What we're doing right now is, in a way, Bill W.'s fantasy. We are giving people that psychedelic experience, even though it's not a psychedelic. We were giving them that experience, though, of kind of like being reborn in a way, or awakening up, waking up. And we were giving them NAD instead of doses of niacin, like he used to do. He used to give thousands of milligrams of niacin to people. And as you know, nobody wants to feel a niacin flush. It's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. So we basically, welcome to the year 2024, we cut out the middleman and we don't need niacin anymore. We can just give people direct NAD plus directly into their veins. And what's it's doing, it's basically giving their cells a turbocharge and allows your body to fight the detox off on its own. It sounds too good to be true, and I would probably be calling bullshit if I was on the other side. I'd be like, okay, dude, yeah, you're going to turbo your cells. And yes, that's exactly what we're doing. Watch the videos on our page, take a look and listen to what these patients are saying, because yes, I will say it. I think this is one of the greatest advancements in the field of recovery, definitely over the last 50 years. We can finally do this and get people off medications with mild to moderate symptoms and then leave them feeling good when they go home over depressed, anxious, and having cravings.
I think that's awesome. And I think a great book, I think it's called How to Change Your Mind. They did a Netflix series, but I prefer the book over it. Yeah. I encourage you guys to look that up. I got the Audible and listened to it. And it really talks about psilocybin and other, I think it addresses ketamine, I think, in it also, and other, mind-altering.
5-MeO-DMT, he talks about.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't like that.
The studies. He talks about the studies, and it's interesting to hear, because one of the things, if you guys don't know this, is they actually did a study on cancer patients who, that fear of death, and I have witnessed that, coming to terms with that and giving these patients, psilocybin, and them having this experience to where they finally feel at peace and aren't terrified of dying. And that's a big deal. I think that is so important.
It's so important. I never ever thought psychedelics would be the answer, but I should have, because when I was 18 years old, I was a straight F student. I never got it. When I brought home a D-, it would go on the refrigerator. Good going, Justin. D- in geometry. But I was basically a straight F student, and I got my bartending license, and I was expelled from high school. And I wasn't really into drugs or anything like that. I was smoking a lot of weed to deal with the ADHD, but not really into drugs or anything like that. I did mushrooms one night, and the Grateful Dead show I was going to was canceled. So I already had the mushrooms in me. Now I have to go home. And instead of dancing around with everybody to Uncle John's band, I'm now at home by myself sitting with the mushrooms. And it showed me what my future looks like. It was driving around in my cool little sports car and picking up high school girls. That was the future at 18, and being the guy who buys beers for everybody. That's what I saw. The next day, I went back to my guidance counselor and I said, how do I get into college? And she goes, Justin, you're a straight F student and you're expelled. I go, there's got to be a way. And she's like, GED, SATs, local college. I ended up at Harvard, and I did not make it out, though, because of other things I was doing in college at that time, though. But I did go to a local college. I ended up going to a state college, and then I went to Harvard to try to psychology. It didn't work out well, and I was definitely a little bit outclassed there, or definitely didn't feel like I belonged there. I was fine at UMass, not at Harvard. No, not at all. But this all happened because of a psychedelic experience. One psychedelic experience motivated me to change my life like that.
I think that's awesome.
And all these years that I was doing opiates, I knew not to take psychedelics because I knew it would ruin my high.
It ground you.
More or less. It would make me take a good look inside, and I didn't want that.
Yeah, I did LSD in high school, and it was I had never done it. I didn't know what to expect, and I just don't have an addictive personality. I did it twice, I will say that, but I had so much fun doing LSD. Like I felt like I was Alice in Wonderland. That's how it was for me. Like literally, that's how I felt.
A lot of people
And
have positive, great experiences on psychedelics, but do I recommend them for everybody?
no, no,
No.
no.
Not at all.
And so like for me though, but I mean, kind of like what you talk about. One, it's probably both of us, but you were diagnosed younger, like ADHD. I was undiagnosed, and my grades were shit. If I applied myself, I could easily get A's, but I ended up dropping out. I got my GED, and I went to community college. I flunked out of nursing school to eventually go back 10 years later, get straight A's through nursing school because I was just at a different point in life, become a nurse, and now I'm a nurse practitioner. So I just want people to know I always advocate that just because you feel like you're in a place in your life, like you feel like a piece of shit, you can do whatever you dream of. There's nothing to hold you back.
I mean, look at this guy here. Like, not to like put the spotlight, but I
No,
was homeless. I was homeless. I almost lost my arm in the ER. They were going to amputate and they put me under and tried massive amounts of antibiotics. But they put me out and I was expecting to wake up without an arm. And they were like, Mr. Hoffman, you're so lucky, something happened and, the antibiotics worked and it's under control. And what did I do right afterwards? I was like, great, I can use now. That's how like nuts that we get with it though, And to go from a guy like that was also facing 5 years, to where I'm at right now, and they did label me hopeless, at actual psychologist said, you're one of the people that we call hopeless. So we recommend MATs for the rest of your life. And another psych ward kicked me out for being too crazy. And they said those words. And I was like, I'm a psych major. You can't say that. And she's like, what do you want me to say? You got to go. When you're kicked out of a psych ward for being too crazy, I, at that point was like the first time that I thought of like unaliving. I'm like, wow, I'm not just like a bad case. I'm the worst case, And when I tell you, ever since I changed my attitude 10 and a half years ago about recovery and this victim mentality that I had, that I'm going to be diseased for the rest of my life and always going to have cravings and, I'm never going to be free from this. Once I changed that attitude, I was free. I was free. If I want opiates, it's very easy for me to take opiates. If I want benzos, it's very easy for me. I don't want that life. I finally have found a combination of medicines that have worked for me, that have like kept me stable. And number one out of everything is really NAD and microdosing. I don't want to take any long hallucinogenic trips anymore. I'm good, and what they say also is psychedelics are kind of like a receiver to the universe, like a phone, like in a way, phone receiver to the universe. And once you get the message, hang up the phone.
Yep.
I got the message, do the right thing, on a habitual basis. So,
Yeah. No,
um,
I've talked about like I would love to do ayahuasca. That was I had messaged you and I had told you that that's something I'd love to do. But then again, when I've heard the stories about it, the purging, it kind of scares me. I'm not really all about that part. But but then
that's a big thumbs up.
that's a good thing.
Like, don't be afraid of the purging because all is medical purging, like from the flu or too much alcohol. That feels horrible. When you're purging from, say, something like combo or ayahuasca, it feels really good.
Because you're like letting it all out, right? Like all the bad juju.
The depression, the anxiety, the toxins. I've seen like things swimming around in my vomit in an ayahuasca bucket. Maybe I was tripping, but it seemed like little parasites. And, and like I told you before, like I've never thrown up anything black, but that's happened during combo, that's happened during ayahuasca. And I don't know what that is. I'm not a medical professional, but what's black vomit,
No, true. I mean, you shouldn't have that. That usually we call that a GI bleed. and so, yeah.
I said to like a shaman's a doctor, I was like, look at my bucket. It's all black. He's like, good. And I'm like, that's good. He's good. I'm like, okay, bueno. I'm like, okay. But yeah, like since I basically, what it took was me leaving AA to get better. Once I left AA, I got better.
And I think that's like sad in a lot of ways. Do you know what I mean?
This is the number one program that they are pushing in over 90% of our rehabs. And what I realized, at least like for me, it was keeping me sick. The mentality was keeping me sick. The idea that I am constantly diseased. I was like, don't you guys ever think like you'll be able to smoke a joint one day or have a drink or something, or you just want a raw dog life for the rest of your life? And they're like, oh, no, no, no. A joint? There's a guy who came to the meetings, Jimmy, on his 10-year anniversary. He had a glass of wine with his wife, and then he went out afterwards and was shooting up and then smoking crack and then ended up downtown. And it's like you hear these horror stories over and over and over again, and you believe that's going to happen to you. And when you do, say, have that night where you have a glass of wine, you're like, remember what happened to Jimmy? Oh, yeah. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
You know, it's kind of like, I mean, I know you've heard this, like a lot of people will say relapse is a part of recovery. And my opinion on that, and I've kind of shared this, is our mind is a funny thing. It's a very powerful thing. And I feel like when people say relapse is a part of recovery, you can trick yourself in thinking it's okay to do it this time.
Yeah,
Because
no,
it's a part of it.
yeah, people are leaving out the part that, yeah, it's a part of recovery and it's a part where people die. Especially when they've gone through a rehab and cleaned their system out and go back to opiates, there's such a great chance for an overdose at that point.
That's what upsets me a lot about AANA, like making people feel guilty for being on MAT, because I have heard all the stories from loved ones. Yeah, yeah, and where they get off of it because they're like, I'm not really in recovery, and they get off of it to, obviously they weren't ready to come off of it, or they weaned off way too fast, and they weren't guided with a taper by any means, and then they relapse and they lose their life.
Every time I went to get off benzos at rehabs, they cut me off that day. You know, and then wondered why I wasn't sleeping for 3-4 nights in a row, going into psychosis, having a seizure. Maybe you shouldn't have taken me off 8 milligrams of Xanax, just like that, you know, and put me on, what was it that they gave me? Gabapentin and
Which is addictive.
phenobarbital.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we use phenobarb a lot for CWA. Yeah.
And Depakote, I think they have me on also, you know, which nobody wants to be on. Not a fun drug. But yeah, like it's absolutely blows my mind that we could be doing so much better. When I went over to a rehab actually to go visit one of our patients one time, I said, you know, I'm like, he seems like he's very dehydrated. I was like, so I brought over these hydration packs. Can you just like give them to him and put them in his water? And they're like, Mr. Hoffman, come with me. And I'm like, okay, what? Opens up a refrigerator and it is stocked from top to bottom with Coca-Cola bottles. She's like, how's this for hydration? And I'm like, horrible. It's horrible. That's not what you use. That's why I'm giving them packets of salt and sugar, you know? And I'm not a doctor. Holy shit. You know, it's just, it blows my mind. It seems like some of these places, they're not looking for the best and the brightest. Or outside of the box thinkers either. You know, they're looking for people to just go along with, you know, the protocol.
No, but the great thing I will say as far as social media, it is the opportunity, like bringing us together, Dr. Taylor Nichols, Macaulay, you know, all a variety of people together who really, you know, do want to advocate for change, and that there is other options. You know, a lot of people, I hope my daughter succeeds. We just kind of live in the now, but you know, we skipped inpatient for the first time ever. She detoxed at home. She's an IV fentanyl user, chronic relapser, and she's doing great. I mean,
I watched the whole story and I was brought to tears. You know, I was brought to tears. that, especially when you started talking about, I stopped listening to the people that were supposedly experts on this. And once I stopped listening to them, my daughter got better.
And I gained peace as a loved one. It's amazing. Like, people don't get that. They're like, what do you mean? You like literally look happy. I said, because I know I'm going to love my daughter either way. That's the difference. I don't have to, cut her off completely, and people didn't understand. You're going to have her come to your Thanksgiving, like, hi. I'm like, you know what? I am. Well, let's see how it goes. And she was high. She was, methed out. But it was still probably one of the best holidays I think we've ever had as a family, because one of the perspective and realizing tomorrow is never promised, and it allowed all of us to live in the moment. And it's a beautiful thing when you reach that kind of peace.
Love that. And I don't believe in this enabling bullshit either. If the choice is a roof over her head and 3 meals a day, or the streets and doing whatever she has to do to survive, it's no choice. But meanwhile, that 12-step program will be telling you to apply tough love to this situation.
That's all any system
Tough love could have
tells
killed
you.
her.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and that is what we as family members, what we're told. That's really all we're told. And there's a lot of people that really hate me, which I don't care. But because I speak out actively against it. But I have now, when I started realizing just how corrupt it is, and trust me, I was naive in the very beginning. I wanted to trust the professionals, and it was our experience with Baltimore last year that really changed my outlook. And then the interventionist that's on here, me realizing, now I see how this is working. I get it now. Like, you're getting paid in some way. You're getting some type of kickback. And when I saw that, because of what he was texting me, when my daughter was missing, she was missing, and I was scared she was dead. His priority was encouraging me to try to meet with the owners of a rehab. And I had not talked to my daughter alone for over 90 days. And when they cut us off completely, because that's the first rehab, and we were lied to.
Is she in jail or rehab?
She was in rehab.
I know. I'm saying that rhetorically.
No, in jail or rehab. No, and she was, when I tell people like the corruption, and I talk about red flags, this treatment facility checks all the boxes that people tell you for rehabs. They talk about body brokering on their website. They're credentialed by credited by the Joint Commission. They're not a good place. I mean, that's what it comes down to. They're still not a good place.
I would say the majority are awful. The majority are, like, I wouldn't even use another word other than awful. I see what they're doing for groups. I sat in on a group a couple months ago, and this is how it started. I'm not joking. Okay, everybody, go get a piece of tinfoil. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm almost triggered. Like, what are you talking about? I used to smoke my heroin on tinfoil. Everybody get a piece of tinfoil. We're going to curl it up into a ball. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then pick a partner, and we're going to throw the tinfoil balls back and forth in a rhythm. So I did this for a half hour with the group. And then she's like, can anybody tell me why we did this exercise? And everybody's sitting there like, she's like, teamwork. And I'm like, holy fuck. Like, I can't believe this is actually a group. This is actually happening. In modern times, we're not getting to the root issues. We're not physically making them better. When I had my rehab, we were waking up at 7 o'clock, making our beds, cleaning our rooms, going to the gym first thing by 8 o'clock. Either the gym, a hike outside, or a yoga class. It was always happening first thing in the morning. And we were doing different activities throughout the day that were helping to heal us, physically heal us, because that's number one. Everybody wants to get rid of their post-acute symptoms. Like, we can't sit down and start talking about things until people can get out of bed, and are starting to feel good. So we concentrated a lot on that. We used infrared saunas. We used flotation tanks. We used cryotherapy. We use Reiki masters, which a little foo-foo, but the patients would have amazing experiences with this Reiki master that we were using all the time.
Yeah. The place she went to used therapeutic community, if you know what that is. And I had never heard of that. I didn't know what therapeutic community was. So they do what's called the hot seat. And basically, if somebody breaks a rule, they put them, in the center, and then everybody in the whole place gets to bash you and tear you down and tell you how much of a piece of shit you are.
That comes from the cult called Synanon.
Yes. Yes.
That's originally from a cult. That's a cult tactic.
Yes, and that is what, and they don't advertise that. That gold standard place doesn't advertise that, and that's what they used.
It's a tactic. It's a cult tactic to break you down. Why are you using cult tactics to heal people?
Yeah.
Why are you putting them on the hot? They do that in that. There's a rehab on here, sober living or whatever. That is such a shit show.
Graceland.
I don't talk bad about anybody.
But no, I know they use that. I've heard about it. And what baffled me when I learned about it, because I had to look it up, like what this therapy was. I was like, so you're a trauma healing place, but you're causing trauma. Because their idea is you tear them down to build them back out. Makes perfect sense.
I mean, the military does a great job of it, but that's the Marines. These are people that have gone through severe trauma as kids. Usually, about I think it's over 80% have had adverse childhood experiences, and now you're re-traumatizing them. You're re-traumatizing them sometimes in the rooms too, when you're shaming them. A guy like me who is dependent on my sponsor and all the new friends that I had found in AA now aren't picking up my phone or the phone because it was a half a joint I think I had, and I was able to sleep and eat for the first time in almost 2.5 months. And I admitted it the next day, and everybody was like, "Rrr." And I was like, it really didn't, I woke up today, I don't want to use heroin or anything like that. I know I made a mistake, and I just want to get back on, the bus and get going here with this. And no, the shaming was out of control to the point that I was so crushed that I ended up doing dope that day.
Yeah, no, I think, and that's the thing is you look to these people because they should be like family, right? That's your community. To then have your community turn against you. If anybody's experienced that in high school, you know how horrible, I know how horrible that feels.
Yes.
And that's what it's like, kind of, I guess.
That's exactly Paris Hill. Yeah, she did. Addiction changes the brain, thought processing, decision. My counselor saved my life 10 years ago. I'm still with her today. That's awesome. Most treatment centers are more harmful than helpful. Nadine, you're 100% right. They are. They're causing a lot of harm, and the programming that you're hearing, that you basically have no chance. Every single rehab I went to did the same thing. We'd all sit in a circle, and the group counselor who has no credentials would come in and be like, look to the guy next to you, look to the other guy. They're not going to make it. Are you going to be the one to make it? And I'm like, not with these odds. No, I'm not that guy, that's going to beat the odds on this one. So I don't know. It's just, there needs to be reform. And there needs to be reform also when it comes to how we detox these people. We need to use a lot more compassion. There needs to be a lot more doctors like Dr. Leung. If you haven't noticed, when he's talking to our patients, he's never judging. He's never flinching with whatever they're telling him. He's just there to listen.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of doctors struggle, is listening.
Yeah.
They struggle with listening. Danielle had, let's see, you said, I've done so much shaming to my son regretfully. Danielle, it happens. It sucks, right? Because we're hurt, and you just have to work on not doing that, because they trust me. They know how you feel. You don't need to express it, because they are beating themselves up more than you can, in my experience.
When I meditate sometimes in the morning, not sometimes, it's been almost daily for a little while now, it's really to approach every patient and everybody that I'm dealing with in my life with love, kindness, and compassion. And when you put that out there, it starts to become a reality. Like even when I'm really, really mad at somebody, I'm still coming across even keeled and loving, not
Yeah.
judging.
And
You know,
it's hard.
so
Like for me, my daughter, which they're used to dealing with me, I am a very to the point person and it comes across as abrasive and rude, but I'm really like the most caring and humbled person ever, especially when I discovered my daughter was struggling with IV fentanyl use. I mean, that I've talked about it like humbling me to my knees, you know, when you learn of that. But I'm also grateful for that experience because it made me, I feel like a better person. And I am way more empathetic in my practice than I think I ever would have been. I always had empathy, but now I feel like I have empathy in a way that patients would want, families would want. Like I love my job and I'm passionate about it.
that's how I am too. And you know what? I don't know if you're like this, but with ADHD, we're not the most organized people. We're just not. We're all over the place. When I am caretaking for a patient, laser focused on laser focused. All of a sudden, like it's amazing. All of a sudden, I know how to do laundry, clean up, cook, this, do everything I need to do. And then I come home and I'll look at my dirty laundry and be like, I'm so confused. Like, how
Oh
do I
no,
do
I get
this?
overwhelmed. My bedroom is a disaster, and my daughter totally gets. She's like, "Your ADHD is bad." I go, because I'll look at that and I'll be like, "I can't deal with that today. That is just too much for me." Because I can get overwhelmed. But when it comes to my job, like I'm hyper focused, lasered in, and I'm really good at what I do. And someone had asked any good books for education on addiction. From my perspective, one of the best books I think I have read is In the Realm of Hungry Ghost.
You're
I
right.
thought that was a great book.
You're dead on the money. Like there is nobody that understands addiction actually like Gabor Mate. You know what? It was really interesting. I know people are going to give me shit now, but it's okay. After I did Ibogaine, I had such programming in my head that Passages, Malibu was the ultimate enemy because they are non-12 step and they are proud of it. And I'm like, ooh, they are the worst, you know? And we would always make fun of the commercials and everything. Anyway, I get done with Ibogaine and I'm up, you know, very wired. And, you know, I'm like, what do I do? He's like, read a book. He's like, I got dozens. And I'm like, okay. And the first book I saw was Addiction and the Cure, or The Cure for Alcoholism and Addiction, Passages Malibu. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to open up my mind a little bit. I'm going to give it a try. So I read his entire book. And to tell you the truth, it opened my eyes to,
Really?
yeah, it opened my eyes a lot to, you know, how much bullshit I was being sold in AA. Because it's a lot about that and a lot about using professionals in a treatment space over non-professionals coming in with their Dunkin' Donuts coffee, go, you could be like me one day too, you know? And it's just like, oh my God, I don't want to be like you, you know? I I don't know. I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones that kind of escaped the system and got better. You know, but if I had stayed in AA and stayed going to these 12-step Minnesota model rehabs, I would not be talking to you right now. There's no way in hell I would still be alive. None. Like, and I don't even say that as a maybe. It's a definite, you know, because I was right there on the brink 10 and a half years ago. And if something didn't shift the way that it shifted, I would not be here, you know. So now I look at that also, Brandy, as such a gift that I owe something that's out there, whatever's out there. I definitely wasn't, you know, believing in anything before. Now I have a lot of different beliefs, pretty wild ones. But
Crazy, right? Like I never would have thought, like honestly, when I started sharing on here 4 years ago, I did it. One, it became kind of a sense of community for me. And I like 3,000 people. I was like, damn, this is overwhelming. Now, like 324,000 people. I'm like, why? You know, I'm just a normal person. I wipe my ass like everyone else. But
that's
yeah, but it's I pride myself on being very transparent. There are people who they screen, like, you know, they write out their content. You guys, I don't fucking do that. Like, I literally, I word vomit my videos. Like, it is a one take, it's one and done. This is very easy for me. And it's weird to think that maybe this is part of my purpose in life when you think about your purpose. And the only reason I continue to do this is because I genuinely hope to advocate and bring change. Was I thinking that way 4 years ago? No. Was I thinking that way 2 years ago? No. But this evolved, and so many people feel alone and isolated that I realized, wow, you know, our story matters. And that is the only reason why Brooke is even okay with this. Like, a lot of people have asked, how does she feel about it? And she encourages me to keep sharing, and because I try to humanize the people struggling, not show them in a bad light, because I think that's what's important. I want to help end the stigma, not contribute to it.
You're talking to 330,000 people and telling them that what they've been told over the last 90 years might not be right, you know, and that is important, you know, because if one person just told me that 20 years ago, I probably wouldn't have had to go through all the hell that I had to go through in order to get this. Yeah. So I wish there were people that were talking about this. Nobody talked about this back when I was in AA, you know, but then my sponsor died. And 1 week later, this girl that I brought into the meetings, she was unalived. And I started to ask questions for the first time. I took a look on my computer, like, why wouldn't AA work or something like that? And to my surprise, all these articles by professionals talking about the harm that it causes. And I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But every rehab I went to told me that this is the way. Why would they tell me, oh, they're in AA?
It's crazy. So when I first started kind of talking about this and my family's experience, the amount of attacking that came at me, that I'm not allowed to talk about this. Like, and I'm like, excuse me, I get that there's a gray area, but this impacts me. And why am I not allowed to talk about this? Because I think it's important for people to know that they're not alone. And this brings awareness. And this is how we end stigma. We shouldn't be hiding in a closet. It's bringing awareness. We need to speak out. And I'm really happy because I am seeing more moms, really moms more than dads, coming out and starting to share on social media.
There was actually a Facebook group though it was just moms that were just pushing AA and AA rehabs, and that's it. And anytime you would go on and ask any type of question or anything like that, blocked. You know, like, once you ask any questions in AA, you're going to become the least popular person in the group real quick. Like, hey, why did my sponsor just die? He had 11 years and he did everything you guys said. We're not going to call him Justin to share anymore.
Yep, you're not allowed to ask that question. And
no, here's what I was told. I'm sorry. I was in such shambles when he died, and I was told by dozens and dozens of people that he died so you could live. And I'm like, that's the sickest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Sorry for my language, but that's one of the sickest things I've ever heard. And that's standard. That's the gold standard. What you say to your fellow members when someone passes, they died so you could live.
No, it is sad. And that's why I constantly speak out, and I spit out the statistics of how many people have died from an overdose and how it went up by over 1,000 since the year prior. And it continues to rise. And it's, you know, and people want to say, oh, you know, what, the treatment system is working. No, it's clearly fucking not working. And it's not. And like, something has to change. And you have the ASAM, which the article I linked in my bio, they've come out and said that ethics are lacking in addiction treatment. That's a big fucking deal. And I hope that means that more people are going to start advocating, and maybe finally we can get some more oversight in the treatment industry.
On TikTok, at least, I'm seeing a lot of people like you that are like waking up to the system and how abysmal it is. you know, and how they're actually causing harm and they're re-traumatizing our loved ones, you know, and something needs to change, you know, and I know I'm just one person, but I tried, you know, with my rehab, and I'm trying now with this brand new way of detoxing people, this whole different attitude. Like when Macaulay came out here to help me with caretaking, he couldn't believe like how these people were lighting up like 4 or 5 days into it. Like all of a sudden, you know, talking like different, acting different, eating, sleeping, and eating and sleeping during those first crucial days. Everybody wants to sleep through it, you know, and then other people will say, well, why don't I just go to the rapid detox? Because it's awful and it's painful. That's why, you know, I've had numerous people that have gone through that. And then who wants to get Narcan for 72 hours, you know? Obviously, like people, even though you're under, people are still reporting it being very, very painful. And then not only that, but there's none of the underlying issues are being addressed when you're doing that rapid detox. You're still going to be depressed. You're still going to be anxious. There's still going to be unhealed trauma.
Somebody had asked, so how do we meet people in real life, like the people on here, like you guys? Gosh, well, I'm in Florida, and I'm a pretty private person, but it's crazy. I've been getting noticed more in public, which is still weird every time it happens.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
I mean, 330,000, that's a lot. It's like,
I get noticed more when I go out of state. Like I was in and out when I went over the summer to Phoenix, and somebody came up to me and they throw their phone in front of me. They're like, "Is that you?" And I'm like, "Oh my God," because I don't ever, nobody, at least nobody comes up to me locally. If they know who I am, they don't come up to me. I grew up in this town though, but then last night where we were at a tractor pull, someone know they're like, "I think I follow you on TikTok," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And so that's the first time, and it's cool, you know. And I tell people, I'm like, "Come up and say hi." I really am what I show on here. I'm easy to talk to.
right. Same thing here. It's not like I come on here and put on an act. And maybe, you know, Macaulay said to me, like, he thinks that's the reason why, like, my content is taken off a little bit, because none of it is polished or none of it is like multiple takes or anything like that. It's just shoot and talk. And whatever is coming out of my mouth is coming out of my mouth at that time, you know?
Yeah, and people can sense that. I really think that's why my content has blown up, is because
there's a good reason why you're at 350 right now.
yeah, and it is. It's because I'm very transparent, and I mean, and I say fuck a lot, among other things. And I tell people, I'm like, I'm not going to change that. And
Dr. Leon doesn't like that. If you're listening, Dr. Leon, I'm trying. I really am. I'm trying to get that Boston, you know, out of me. Because in Boston, we use fuck like normal people use the, you know. So everything is like fuck the fuck, the fuck, you know. And so I come on here and I realize I'm representing a business, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to watch my language, you know.
You know, I mean, I'm representing me. I don't represent my place of employment, obviously, but like my job, my attendees, my bosses, they had to know about my social media. And the cool thing is they appreciate it. Like, I'm very blessed in that. They know how I am, because I say fuck at work. Obviously not in front of my patients, but you know, it's like this is me all the time. But you know, I'm very blessed in that you know, they love me doing this. And when I've really thought about walking away, because it would be easy for me to walk away. Like, I love this, but it causes a lot of stress also. And they're like, they encourage me to keep doing it. They're like, you really care, you're trying to make a difference and change. And it's like all these people, including my daughter, like, keep doing this. And it's hard.
It is hard. But you know what though? You're impacting people's lives. I don't want to get on a live almost. I get on like 5 times a week or so at 5 o'clock every night. But I get on because there's always one person that says to me, you just gave me hope tonight.
And I get those messages a lot. And it's like, And and it's, I had a girl comment today on one of my daughter's videos that said, to Brooke, like, you make me want to get sober for real. And I'm like, and she cries when she reads messages. She does go through and read. And it's like, when you see those, I talked about, I had a girl, this story impacted me the most. She kissed her kids, put them to bed, and she was planning on going out and relapsing, and she went to the bathroom, and she said she opened her phone, and I came up, and she said, my kids have their mother for another day. And that, like, I just cried. Like, that story, when people talk about your most impactful stories so far, it's really been that one, because and that was a couple years ago. And I've wanted to quit this for a long time, I've said, because people are rude and they try to, like,
I've seen you get
they'll
attacked.
come after your license, they'll contact the board, they'll threaten my job, and I'm like, good luck. Trust me, you think the board hasn't been contacted about me enough? I'm sure they have.
Right. I can't believe how that's so wild that people would go after you personally because you don't like AA or you see some issues with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what, they did it to me with my rehab that I owned like 4 years ago. Okay. They went after my website and redirected it to the AA website because
Wow.
we were using a psychedelic. It's absolute, like, and then people say it's not a cult. It's not a cult. Then stop acting like, well, you're in one.
Yeah.
Stop acting.
No, and and that's the thing is, it comes across as I'm anti NAAA, and I know you can agree with that. And it's not that. I really support all paths. If abstinence works for you, and that's awesome. But you shouldn't, downplay and make people feel bad about how they're choosing recovery. And that, because like I said, the goal is life.
Right. It becomes, if you're not doing it, it's almost like a narcissistic trait in a way. We know the way, and this is the only way. And if you're not doing our way, you are not clean. And what a stupid word anyway, clean, because that infers that you were dirty before. I was somebody that was suffering from trauma and doing my best to not unalive myself. I don't consider myself dirty, like, how condescending is that? All this language, all these limiting beliefs, like, you're going to, once a pickle, you can't go back to being a cucumber. I did. I took opiates in the ER. I was fine. I didn't turn into a raving lunatic addict, after it. I've smoked cannabis in sobriety, and guess what? I didn't end up homeless and on the streets. I'm probably in better shape, I'd say, than 98% of guys that are 54 years old, So I'm fine, but thanks for the advice. One member actually just said to me, one day, Justin, you'll get it and you'll get complete abstinence. And I said, thank you. That's not my goal. That's never been my goal. My goal is to be happy, peaceful, and kind to other people, and do what I can to make a positive impact on this planet over being a parasite like I was before. That's it.
No, and what people don't realize is, like, if they want to try to contact my place of employment and get me fired, if you get me fired, it's only going to get worse on here. Like, I mean,
you're gonna have plenty of free time.
People do not realize I could easily go get a job in addiction treatment if that's what I wanted to do. I could easily go open my own place if that's what I wanted to do. And it's like, the thing is that if I ever go that route, I want it to be about what I believe in, not about a paycheck. And so, like, I love my job. I love what I do, but I'm also passionate about this. So you're just going to see more of me if I lose my job.
Oh God. Anyway, yeah, we need a lot more of you and a lot less of these guys that are answering phones at a sober living with a Xanax patient that is 1 week clean and telling him that he's out of you're good now. You can come here. You're good now. No, he's not good after 1 week of Xanax withdrawal. It's only going to get worse, big guy. Like, how the hell are you answering phones if you don't know the basics?
Well, I
Like,
mean, Are you even really talking to somebody in the facility when you call a rehab? You know what I mean? Most of the time you're getting into a call center, I feel like, at a lot of these places.
Every single, you know what? And I made sure that that was different with us. Every single time that they call our clinic, it's either me picking up or it's the nurse who is very informed on what we do.
Yep.
And if, you know what? And if I have, I'm a question is thrown my way that I can't answer, I just hit the doctor up right away and get the answer. And it's not, it's nothing, it's not a bad thing for me to say, I don't know. And I wish a lot more people on this app would just
I
say
tell
that
people that all
sometimes.
the
I
time.
don't know.
I don't know. I'll try to find out. Like,
Right.
let me see.
Right.
Don't
I
bullshit.
don't hear that. I hear a lot of people that like, I know. I have the way. I know the answer. If you hear anybody on this app that's saying, I have the answer, and if you go through the steps my way, things are going to be different. Like run. That's a spiritual narcissist. Run. And I had traits of that when I first opened my rehab because I believe that if everybody just did what I did,
It would be okay.
they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then what I realized maybe 3 months into it is that every single patient is 100% different than the next. Some are going to respond to yoga, some are going to respond to hiking, some are going to respond to art, some are not. You know, some are going to like music at night, some are not. You know, everybody's different, and we need to approach it that way. We need to individualize care and not just say, group everybody like sheep and throw them into a church basement with bad coffee. What, I mean, like, honestly, like when I went to my first meeting, I was like, this is going to be the rest of my life. They're saying that I have to go here for the rest of my life and then hang out with people that I don't really like
For the rest of your life.
for the rest of my life. Church basements, bad coffee, and stale donuts. That's my life from now on.
And now look at your life.
Yeah, I know. Because I left. Like, amazing what happens when you leave. I hate to say it, but it is kind of cult-like. You know, and they are not happy when you leave. You know, my therapist said to me that for her to deprogram somebody from AA, it takes just as long to deprogram them from AA as it does, say, a Scientologist.
Wow. Wow.
She said the programming runs that deep.
That's intense. And you know what's interesting is one of the things, because where I help my daughter, like in trying to find a therapist, even therapists are programmed to say you need to be going to meetings. And I made it very clear to her therapist, hey, just so you know, we're not about that life and anymore. And so, and I'm like, that, you know, my asshole bullet points, because that's how I talk, is, you know, just so you know, because she just, this is why I think advocating is so important. And that's like a lot of people be like, you're enabling, you're codependent. No, a healthcare advocate is so important because my daughter, when she's struggling this, she doesn't know how to speak up. And whereas I do, and I'm in the clear mindset to do so. And so I'll be like, just so you know, my daughter has treatment trauma. So we do not believe in like the 12-step mindset, and so she will not be going to meetings, and because they can either respect that or be honest and say, no, I can't help you, and then we'll find another therapist.
What if someone has social anxiety and you're pushing them into a meeting and forcing them to talk?
Yeah.
That's re-traumatizing them, creating more of a problem. You know, this madness has to end. And like, I don't want to bring an end to AA or anything like that, because I think there's it fits certain people like perfectly. I just don't want it pushed in 90% of our rehabs as the only answer.
Even court.
I don't want sex offenders sentenced to meetings.
And that's the thing, like even court systems, drug court, they push meetings. Like that's what you have to do, so many parts of it. And I hope it moves away from that. I get that there needs to be something, but this is why I think people don't understand why I think it's important that the mindset, how the program is kind of changes and is more accepting, because so much of our system forces that to those meetings.
Just recently, someone brought the court to trial, actually sued them for forcing him to go to a religious program.
Oh, it makes sense.
And he won.
Wow.
And he won. because they did prove that it was a religious program by saying the word God in over 80% of the pages. You're a religious program. You know, there'll be people on here going, it's spiritual. No, it isn't. No, that's not spiritual. You know, I advocate for evidence-based. I love that.
What's an
What's the
alternative
alternative?
to AANA? I know there's Mara, I think is one, which is medicated assisted. I've never.
It was just really weird when I went to Smart Recovery. Nothing is as established as AA and NA. There's nothing that is as established. I am trying my hardest by just starting a Wednesday night meeting with a different narrative going on. And no, you're not going to introduce yourself as an alcoholic. I find that one of the craziest things too. Like, you're going to call yourself an alcoholic and an addict every single day for the rest of your life. What are you telling your brain? What are you telling your brain? I'm an alcoholic. I just accept it. No. Okay. I don't know. I don't see myself even as an ex-addict anymore. I look at it as a phase I went through and it's over. I look at it as a reaction to trauma, you know, and I've healed that trauma. So it's over, you know. Is there any part of me that, you know, has any reservations? No. You know, no, I don't like the feeling anymore. I just don't like it. You know, there's nothing about it that's like appealing unless I want to itch and not go to the bathroom the next day, you know, and I'm not looking to do that. That doesn't sound like a party to me.
Especially after you've been regular for so long, right?
And yeah, that's why, like, as soon as I felt that the next day, I felt like a concrete block in front of me. And I'm like, this is not going to fucking work. I was like, I'm done, you know? And I got really, really moody, like immediately, like I was yelling at people and I was like, where was that coming from? Like, what? Oh yeah.
That's where. Yep.
But we're not told any of this, that we'll get over it, that there's a possible cure, that we can just walk away from it. We're told that we're constantly going to be sick. South Park did an episode about AA. And if you haven't seen it, please watch it after we get off this. They nailed it. What happens basically is Stan's father gets arrested for drunk driving. The court sentenced him to AA. He goes to AA and they're like, you're sick, you're diseased, you're always gonna be an alcoholic. He's like, guys, I had a little bit too many one night and I shouldn't have driven. I made a mistake, I'm not gonna make it again. You're just in denial, this and that. And they're just battering him with like how sick he is and diseased and denial and everything. And then all of a sudden the next morning he wakes up and Kyle comes downstairs and his father's in a wheelchair with an IV bag. He's going, Dad, what's up? He's like, I'm a very sick, diseased man. And I'm always going to have this, Kyle. You have to understand, or whatever it was. And I'm like, that's it. If you are told that you are sick and diseased, you are going to believe that you are sick and diseased. And when you are so vulnerable and fresh out of rehab, you're ready to listen to anything. So you tell me that I'm sick and vulnerable, I'm always going to be diseased. Okay. I don't want to have this. What can I do? Well, just show up to the church basement every day, one day at a time, instead of never again.
Yeah.
You know, like never, ever again am I going back to that life. Anyway, I got to get running. I'm like way, way over my time.
It went way longer than I expected. So
we did 2 hours and 45, I think.
Yeah, probably. It's crazy. But this was fun.
Yeah, everybody that I have on silent is probably like texting like crazy right now. But notice it didn't come through again, so the
it didn't. That's good.
I absolutely loved talking with you. Thank you so much. And it's so, like, you have no idea how much joy it brings to see creators like you that are really getting it and speaking from a professional too. You know, and not only that, but handling yourself also when you have these trolls, handling yourself with like class, you know, not getting on their level.
I struggle sometimes, don't get me wrong, but I struggle, but I try.
I've gotten a little bit snarky, but the doctor calls me out like right away. He'll be like, dude, and I'm like, okay. You know, because I'll sometimes I'll just like, especially when they're going after him, and I know what kind of guy he is. I'm just like, oh,
You
that's
get defensive. That's like, oh man, come after one of my kids,
yeah.
like even my
Like,
daughter,
a
and I'll be
tickle
like,
always comes
okay.
out, and he doesn't need me. He's an ex-Marine. He can handle himself. But like, I get defensive, you know, and I'm like, how dare you say that, you know? But what I realize is I need to remain above it all, you know.
Mhm.
And same thing with you, and you're doing an amazing job of it. We're advocates, and we're not here to roll around in the mud with these people,
No.
you know. It's quite bizarre that this is even happening right now. We should all be on the same team, but it feels like there's two sides to TikTok.
There are. Yeah.
And it also, what I'm seeing a lot with these 12-step creators, there's always a hustle behind it, one way or another. There's always some kind of a hustle. You know. Anyway, all right, I'm going to get going. Brandy, thank you so much.
You guys,
And
thank you.
it was so good to see you guys. Take care. If anybody has any questions, call the number in my bio, and if I don't pick up, I'll get back to you. I promise, like within hours. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.